Hello. Instead of just dunking on or like even occasionally agreeing with, because it's not always like I disagree with everything people say that I talk about. But instead of just talking about anti woke grifters and all that, let's talk about another form of grifter, which I think is even more like appalling, because at least like the anti woke grifters like have some people with principles, because it's not really the problem with anti woke grifters is that the word woke is just fucking meaningless, right? This is a quote unquote Christian guy who's telling his audience not to see a horror movie because the horror movie has themes that where horror things happen, and because it's loosely tied to a biblical good versus evil, where good wins in the end, but evil, like gets pretty far into its goal before it does, right? Um, this guy is like just adding way too much shit. He also denies Catholicism, which fun enough, this guy doesn't know English, because Catholic like if you actually define the word Catholic, every Christian is by definition a Catholic. Protestants are by definition Catholics, just so you know. He doesn't actually know the definition of the word, because Christian means you believe in the Holy Trinity, right, and all that, right? Um, you have a you have a church as a central figure and all that, right? You believe God is your only salvation, and through Christ's sacrifice, and all that, you get you believe in the Eucharist, which is basically the bread and wine thing, right? That's Catholicism. That's the definition of Catholicism, right? There is no like definition of Catholicism that is like what this weirdo thinks it is. It's literally just Christian. It's another word for Christian, which is very funny because it's always like these extremely very like grifty, linked to my Patreon guys who like the entire purpose of these morons is to just steal from people. And they, it's one thing you'll never see. So let's go look at Good Fight Ministries. I'm gonna look at this right now. So good. Let's just look at this. Good Fight Ministries. Let's do not debunked, but let's do all right, let's do their ministry work, right? Because let's see. So that talking about how rock and roll is bad. All right, well, Satanic Panic shit. All right, already on a good point of don't listen to good music that you like. But anyway, let's look at the actual like important stuff, right? Let's see. Let's start here, right? Statement of faith. All right. So where is the missionary work here? We don't see that. Now, it could still be here. Let's just go here. Good news. Okay, just standard rhetoric. All right. Let's go to I don't know, salvation. Let's see. Right. That's just saying what you believe, but where's the actions, right? Where's the feeding the homeless? Where's the where's the things that actually bring people further to Christ? I'm looking for it, right? Let's go Q&A. Maybe they had some no. Yeah, wow, there is nothing on here. Okay, maybe you see the thing. Like sometimes they do, and it's just not like very good, and like sometimes like they lie a bit or something. But like this one doesn't even like he doesn't even like pretend to. It looks like to actually give a shit about Christian beliefs, really, which is very funny. He doesn't. He's telling you not to watch a movie because it offends his personal interpretation of the Bible, and he's very upsetty spaghetti about his beliefs being challenged by a very low budget horror movie that people enjoy because it's fun, and he's actually the reason why people enjoy these movies in the first place, because a lot of these are lowbrow like movies, right? The reason why people like lowbrow movies is because guys like this are really like part of the woke agenda in the first place. Mastercard is owned primarily, like a lot of the like anti-porn stuff from Mastercard is because of these fucking ass wipes, right? And they donate to Mastercard and Visa to get rid of things like pornography, sexual appeal of characters and stuff. So every single person that's in the anti-woke grift, literally, this guy is like literally one of the main reasons why all the fucking games suck now. Because all the AAA games, right? They want to both appeal to the LGBT and these asswipes, so they got to get rid of any of the cool, like, sexy stuff, in order to add these themes. And it's just so disgustingly vile how much these guys just want to borify everything, right? Look, dude, it's fiction. Learn what that means, right? Also, yeah, he's trying to say Satanism is the same as pornography, and also that pornography leads to sex trafficking. What I want to know, why is it that now that pornography is very like profound, like everywhere you can go, you can find some. And now AI, you can just generate unlimited of it. Why is it that sex trafficking has like severely decreased? Right nowadays, like you see sex trafficking, it's like, okay, these guys caught them like 10 years ago, like in that movie that just came out last year. What was it like? That movie that came out last year. It was really bad. Like the dude basically, he was an action hero, and his one liner was he admitted to being a pedophile, and apparently that's supposed to be the cool one liner of like the equivalent to yippee ki yay motherfucker of the movie. Sound of Freedom. That's what it was, right? Um, why is it that all of that, save for Andrew Tate and the guy I talked about, Legal Mindset, why is it that all of that is 10 years ago, right? Well, the reason why is because it's just not that big of a thing anymore. Like, it's a lot of it's happening less and less. As people get more into porn, it turns out that they don't fucking get their jollies off on real people as much. And when you're not fucking kids and strangers anymore, you tend to because you're just getting your rocks off online. You tend to avoid this issue, which is why they don't like it, right? Because here's the real kicker: this guy wants sex trafficking because it gets him money. If all the evils in the world were actually dealt with, you know what would happen? He would be broke because he doesn't actually help people. This guy doesn't feed the homeless. He doesn't, provide shelter for the homeless during storms or anything. There's nothing on that on his whole site. There's nothing Christian about this site, right? This is all just like anti-Satanism, I guess, which, sure, that's like a small portion of Christianity, like a very small portion. Like, it's such a small portion. I'm just going to say this. That is such a small portion of what Christianity is about. Um, that there are like there's one book dedicated to it, and even in that book, Revelation, even in that book, there are only about like like about a quarter of the entire that last book of the Bible, which is the only book about this whole thing. Only about a quarter of it mentions Satan, right? Like, it's like, towards like the middle like end of it, right? And that's it. That's the entire focus of it. Other than that, there's like a couple verses in the New Testament earlier where like Jesus like encounters him in the Gobi Desert. And then there's like references where in the Hebrew, like, people like mistranslated the dude who made a bet as the devil. That's just a dude, just so you know. Just like the angel who was called a Satan in Numbers was guiding someone on their path, right? Because as it turns out, being in opposition to someone who's not on the right path is putting them on the right path, right? That's what, like, the word Satan means to test, right? To oppose and to test, right? Um, the devil only appears in the New Testament and in the Garden of Eden. And then like in Revelations. These are their only three appearances of him. People think he appears in Job, but if you actually look at the history of the text and the actual definitions of those words used at the time, he's not in there. It's just a dude. It's just a person, right? A single person makes a bet with God thinking he's hot shit and loses because, as it turns out, betting with an almighty God it's not gonna go well for like your bet, right? And like the thing is, like, it was just a jealous guy, right? He's jealous that God's gifting Job with all these things and not him. So he says, well, if you took away all those things, he'd be just as bad of a worshiper as I am. And so God, lets him take all those things away from him and proves otherwise, right? That's actually literally the point, right? Um, God was right. He already knew he was right. That's why he preferred Job in the first place. It's a jealous man. It's a jealous person, right? It's just someone who's jealous of someone else getting better shit than them, and they challenge God, saying, "Hey, look, and God shows him why he chose that guy over him, right? So like this guy is talking all this about a manifestation that only appears in a couple times in the Bible, and he's using the wrong name. Devil and Lucifer are the names, or Azazel if you want to give his angel name. That's the other thing. They always say Lucifer, and like Satan is the real name, not Lucifer, because Lucifer was the angel. No, L is in every named angel's name. Okay, the point of the L is that L is the Elam, right? The Elam are the angels, right? L is the highest Elam. That's God. And the L in the angels' names means like what their aspect of God is. So Azazel is the guy who actually starts the Nephilim riots in heaven in the Christian faith, right? So Azazel is the one who becomes the serpent in the garden. Yeah, that's Lucifer, right? Lucifer is after he fell. Azazel is when he's still an angel, right? It's weird how these guys don't know this, despite like pretending they do. It's like they don't read fucking scripture and actually like participate in things. And then this guy attacks Halloween, saying the Catholic Church is celebrates Halloween and stuff. So therefore, and then they also introduce paganism. And his proof is that they got like fun things for kids for the kids part of the tradition. Because the weird thing is, all of that is the kids part that you grow out of, right? The Santa, you're not no one believes in Santa as an adult, right? No one believes in the Tooth Fairy, the Easter Bunny as an adult. No one goes trick-or-treating without their kids as an adult, right? All of these traditions that he's like the crying as pagan are literally like just for the kids because they're fun. And that's that's the thing. He's anti-fun, which you can tell basically by like the thing, like everything about it. He hates people having a better time than him, right? He hates that someone can look at this and be entertained, because he hates that people can be entertained at all, right? And the reason why he hates that people can be entertained by cool stuff instead of him is that he's boring, and his whole grift is, if you actually do something entertaining in your life, you will not want to listen to this man at all, right? Because you will see that he's full of shit. Because he isn't a Christian. To say he's a Christian, where is the actual Christ-like behavior from this man? There is none. Like the idea of selling books to people in an economic crisis, making them pay money in an economic crisis where you're a multi-millionaire, right? And you're selling this stupid book of hate to people instead of the actual message of Christ, which, obviously, like I said, if you actually believed in Christ, why does your church not actually do Christian things? Why does your church not have anything about feeding the homeless? Why does your church have nothing about housing people when they need it? Why does your church not have anything about, helping redeem sinners. Why did, like, actually helping redeem sinners by showing them kindness? You don't have any of that because you aren't a Christian. You are a fake, phony baloney grifter. You steal from actual Christians who want to believe you because they're like scared of these things that you made them fear, not God, not the Bible, not anyone else. You did, because you want to steal money from them. You are a thief, you are a scoundrel, you are a hypocrite, you are not a Christian. If anything, you are the Satanist. Maybe that's why you know so much about it, you know? Maybe that's what it really is. You're just the devil. The thing is, if demons came to Earth, right? A real church they would not be allowed in. They would be dancing around this guy's church right away. God would not protect this guy's church. If you're in this church, God is not guarding this church. And you know how I know? Because instead of going after real world problems, he goes after movies that people make by having fun. If you don't like how capitalism works, be a communist then, okay? Be a soy boy leftist communist, and then now you'll see why nobody likes you. Because that's what everyone hates, right? You are literally just that, but adding Christ to communism. Fuck you.
The #1 movie in
You
America
are literally a disgrace to the world. But yeah.
is also believed to be the goriest movie of all time.
Yeah. That's why it's #1. It does a cool new thing. That's its little gimmick. It's also not the #1 movie in the world. It's not even being played worldwide. It's only being played in America. It's just doing very well because it's just a small, low budget horror movie that does what it sets out to do, and it does it well, right? The idea that this is just so bad to watch. You're watching like corn syrup and a guy in a costume that's kind of like dancing around, not making any noise as he like does things that gently mimic actually bad things, right? This is called acting. This is called fiction, right? Like, yeah, the Bible has violence in it, right? The Bible has a lot of things in it. I wouldn't say that the Bible would be like, you should do this in real life in like some of the passages of the Bible either, right? I don't think the Bible is asking us right now as individual Christians to go to war, like just physically go to war and just murder every single person who isn't a Judeo-Christian in every society around us, and including their babies and children and women, right? Not just their soldiers, and right? Because that's the thing that happened, in that was like guided in like the Jericho stuff, right? Within Joshua. Do I think that the Bible really approves of that, as in this is an everything day thing you should do? Hell no. And you don't either, I would bet, right? But that's far more vile and vicious and violent than anything in this film. And I'm not saying Art is a good guy. He's absolutely not, right? But that's the thing. You're not supposed to root for Art as like the hero of the movie. You're supposed to know he's the villain, like pretty much off rip. Like the movie starts with him killing like a kid with an axe, right? And then like murders like the dude's, like the kid's father, and then chases his mother down, and then finds the daughter, and kills her off screen. She's the only one that dies off screen, and then he steals all the presents that were around her house after eating all their food. And then after all that, like there's another scene later where he blows up a bunch of kids with her presents, because one of the only thing he brought that wasn't hers was a bomb. And yeah, so he murders an entire family of people, and then murders even more people, including kids. It's definitely supposed to be sick. The point is that it's sick, right? The point is this is an evil dude. Evil people aren't nice. As it turns out, a vile, vicious person, this is like a way to depict that. It's a vile, vicious person being depicted as a vile, vicious person. Imagine that. She's not sugarcoating. Like, if the Satan was doing evil things, this would be an evil satanistic thing to do. But he's not saying that he approves of this or that anyone should do this. He's saying this is a thing an evil piece of shit would do, right? And art is absolutely a vile, evil piece of shit. So yeah, the guy who is depicted the entire time as a disgusting freakazoid monster is a disgusting freakazoid monster. Yes, absolutely. 100%. Yes, absolutely. Why is that a problem, right? Why is it a problem to depict evil people as evil, right? Like, is it a problem when the Bible does it, right? Like, because the Bible depicts a lot of evil people as evil, right? The Bible depicts, the Egyptians like enslaving, God's people for thousands of years, and has them do a thing, right? Art kills, like, one family. What do the Egyptian? What does the Pharaoh like order? Right, the death of everyone's sons. Right, at a point, and the only reason Moses even survives is because like he gets put in like a basket, and then like a woman picks him up and like raises him, and apparently that's the Pharaoh's wife, and because she kind of hides who he really is for a while, he doesn't actually know that this baby that was just born that day, that she picked out of the river, was not actually hers, I guess, is like how it works, right? And so he doesn't know that like he's actually raising like the Hebrew person that was actually the person that that was like prophesized to defeat him in the first place, right? Because that's the reason why he does it. Gets this prophecy that a Hebrew like man will lead his people to freedom and will be the end of his reign, which both happen, right? And it's kind of like my guy, like like you read that and you're saying like, oh, what is it evil for the Bible to depict that very evil man as an incredibly evil, vile person? Are you saying that the Bible depicting a very evil, an objectively very evil politician who's genocidal, as a very evil politician who's genocidal, is evil? Because that's where your logic leads. If it can't be depicted in fiction, then it definitely can't be depicted in real life, right? Like, yes, evil people are evil. That the Bible doesn't say you can't depict evil in fiction. I don't even know where like this idea is, right? But then again, I guess maybe this guy is so like brain dead he can't tell fiction from reality, right? He probably looks at my icon and thinks like, "Oh, I'm a dragon and a cat. That's what I am." No, it's called having fun, but um I digress. I guess maybe he actually thinks that I am a universe-sized dragon. That's what I am. I'm a universe-sized dragon. My paws eclipse the entire Earth. Yeah, that's really what's happening, right? It's totally not like just some fictional thing about a fictional character that's just kind of like there, right? That's just drawn because I like it that way, right? No, it's just very evil satanic shit that totally is real and shit. What the fuck is wrong with you? Like,
Time
dude,
as
get a fucking grip on reality, dumbass.
Terrifier 3 is
Shit.
leaving audiences fainting, vomiting, and terrified at the theaters. As we
Yeah, like yeah, not it's a shock horror film. That's the point. Not everyone can take it, and not everyone should take it. Like, you're not supposed to be at these movies. Like it's just like everyone. I mean, like, not everyone should be in these movies. The same thing with like the Serbian film. It's a shock film, right? It's not a film for everyone to see. It's a like, if you can stomach this, hey, look, good on you, but not everyone can. And that's fine. Like, what, everyone has to be able to see every movie now? Like, you're telling people not to see this movie. which is not working, by the way. You're not gonna work, by the way. But anyway, you're telling people not to see this fictional movie. And one of your reasons is that some people don't like it. Okay, well, I don't like any of your movies, so there we go. No one should see any of his movies or videos ever again because I personally don't like it, and I can't stand people who grift off of innocent people and steal and lie to them off the false premise of a savior that the person who involved in the video making, this guy does not believe in. Like, you might believe in God, you might believe that there's this big thing, right? He is not going to lead you to salvation. I can tell you 100% this guy does not believe a single word he says. He is just grifting. That's why he's linking his Patreon. That's why he's, like leading a ministry that doesn't minister. He is a scumbag. He is a piece of vile trash that only exists right now, really, to profit off of good Christian people who actually want to believe that they are helping by donating to this man, but aren't helping anyone at all because instead of like actually doing something good with his church, he does nothing but promote hate and scams.
See the spiritual aspects relayed in the film and the appeal of
And it's not like, oh, like he's like homophobic. I'm like, sure, you like maybe he is. I don't know. I don't give a shit. Like this is like, there's plenty of small churches I've been to where the pastor wasn't really like pro gay or pro trans. You think I cared? Hey, look, you know what? At the end of the day, I could still respect him. You know why? Because at the end of the day, once the church was over, they did cleaning up a school, right? I was part of that, right? They had me do ministry work for one of these churches at one point, right? I can respect people who disagree with me on like what like sins are like more important or whatever to discuss, as long as they actually do the bare minimum, because that's the bare minimum. If you are not doing basic charity and basic community function, you are not a Christian. Okay, I'm just going to say that right now. If you are not actually even just trying to make the world a better place, you are not a Christian, right? This guy is not a Christian. He will sell you this idea that he is, but
using
he's
a
not.
clown to
I
promote.
literally proved it by looking at his church and showing that there is no actual missionary work. He hasn't cleaned up a school. He hasn't done any like feeding the homeless. He hasn't housed any like people during like a harsh time. He hasn't done any of that. He probably has a building for size enough for that though. I bet you. I bet you he's a multimillionaire that has a building that like he could easily house homeless people, but he chooses not to. And you know what's funny? The Christians that do ended up like there was a Christian who actually did, right? And he failed to get a permit but the thing is it was his own house, right? So he was letting people in his property. And because of a dumb Ohio law that is very anti-Christian and against the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, freedom of religion, especially freedom of Christian religion, I think that's like a real big, no in my opinion. But a guy, housed some homeless people during the winter where other homeless people died because of how harsh it was, right, in Ohio. And he was arrested and had the people thrown out, and then they died because they were not allowed to seek shelter because he didn't like get some stupid permit thing. This is why, by the way, capitalism rocks. Because unlike these commie guys that will pretend they're not commies, but then they'll support authoritarian solutions to problems with, while grifting about them, right? Um, he's just a commie. Because here's the thing: all authoritarians are the same. So a commie, a monarchist, a theocrat, a fascist, a Nazi, all of them are the exact same people. There is not a political like square, it's a political triangle. Once you go to authoritarian, you are exactly the same as Hitler, as Mao, as Saddam Hussein, as Vladimir Dracula, as Art the fucking Clown at this point, right? So he's advocating for policies that lead to stuff that is far worse than Art the Clown could ever even fathom of being shown to do in these movies, which is really the most disgusting part. Because you might say, oh, he's just advocating against sin and whatever, right? That's where his words advocate, but where his words' actions lead to, because you can't actually do a solution, right? Without genocide. Oh, right. Because if you don't yeah, because then people, but you're like, well, what if they just arrest and then murder them? Yeah, that's genocide. If you specifically outlaw a people, that's genocide, right? That's what Hitler did with Jewish people. Believe it or not, he didn't start directly just going after them. He went after trans people first with the Weimar Republic, right? But then he extended it to the Jews and the Gypsies because they weren't 100% against that. Which, by the way, is kind of very telling that this guy is against LGBT stuff, right, and porn and all that. Which is the stance that the reason why Hitler was against the Jews. Um, just so you know, he was against the Jews, he was against the Gypsies, because they weren't anti-pornography. Like, it's not that they were all in it, it's that they weren't all collectively against it. That's why. And the reason why they weren't collectively against it, for those who are wondering, is they were outcasts. They were societal outcasts who were basically not even really allowed to be first class citizens in nations they were born in, for various reasons. And this guy will like to pretend to tell you like that, oh, you wouldn't have any sympathy if you, no, you would. And that's the thing. When you outcast people for their differences, they tend to hang out with each other and not you, right? Because you don't want to hang out with them anymore. So if the outcasts are gay and trans people and Jewish people, what happens is that they kind of form an alliance with each other because you're not going to treat them like okay. So they form an alliance with each other. So instead of hanging out with Christians as Jewish people, as God's chosen people, a lot of Jewish people hung out with gay and trans people because that's who was left, basically. They were all outcast together. And this is the thing. These guys do not understand history either, because if they did, they wouldn't understand like where these things lie, lead to. Now, maybe he does. Maybe he is just a vile son of a bitch, completely disgusting, who wants to just goose step everywhere while saying the Juden are the problem, kind of thing. Because all his conspiracies theories are literally just QAnon Nazi bullshit, like in different words, but the same meaning. But anyway, I digress. Like, this is literally stuff you would see like a guy named Adolf Hitler say on Kiwi Farms.
Depraved
And I'm not saying because that guy's probably just trolling. This guy probably is actually serious. Kiwi Farms has trolls. These guys are probably 100% serious in their beliefs.
deranged,
Which is why they don't actually say that they're Nazis. Because the guys who say that they're Nazis are usually just trolls. Because who the fuck would identify as that? Everyone hates those guys. But this guy, more than likely, 100% believes every single word of his genocidal rhetoric.
behavior. Stay with us as we look at these and other stories on the 511 News.
Also, what's funny is he will probably say, because he also says Catholicism isn't Christianity, even though literally the definition of Christian and Catholicism is the same. You can go on Twitter, any fucking one of those weebs who has those very transphobic views. You know what? You know the ones. They will tell you, because they're all Catholic. They will scold the fuck out of you. The Catholic means Christian. It's not even there's no. It means the same thing. They will define it for you, and they will militantly prove that all Protestants are also under that definition, unless they are not Trinitarian. The only way to not be a Catholic, by the definition of Catholic, right, is to be either a Unitarian or a Muslim or Latter-day Saints or Jehovah's Witness. Which actually, that's the thing, by the way. Latter-day Saints, Jehovah's Witnesses, and Muslims are sequels to Christianity, much like Christianity is sort of a sequel to Judaism, right? Like they all like take place after the Bible. They all borrow the Bible and take place after, basically, right? Which this guy will probably like try to say otherwise because he hasn't read them. But if you actually read them, yeah, it's basically Muslims, like Jehovah's Witnesses and Latter Day Saints are all basically Christianity 2, Electric Boogaloo, like sort of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre has like 7 twos, like 7 movies. Are the second movie. Like that's basically what this is. You know, it's like 7 second movies, 7 second religions, right? Maybe that proves that Christianity is the right one because it's got 7 sequels, which is a very godly number, you know? Just saying, seven's a very godly number, so having 7 sequels, you know?
Welcome back to the 511
And no, Catholicism isn't one of them. Gnosticism is, though.
News. I'm
Which,
your host.
by the way, it's also kind of funny. He says the Romans, the Catholics, the Catholicism existed way before the Roman Catholicism, right? And Roman Catholicism is also not really that different from the Catholicism that was practiced beforehand. The only difference is there was a time called the Gnostic period where there was this like kind of weird like one where like it's basically like what if someone read the Bible while high kind of thing. That's what Gnosticism is. Um, yeah.
Host Chad Davidson of Good Fight Ministries. And on today's episode, we're going to be looking at Terrifier 3, as well as the origin story of this and all of the religious themes that are being pushed in.
Yeah, it's pushing Christianity. It's pushing it, which is very funny. It's pushing the Bible, and he doesn't like that. He doesn't like that because icky things happen in the movie. Yeah, icky things happen in like the Bible too. It's not like I guess what it really comes down to, the Bible shouldn't really be read by kids, just like this movie shouldn't be watched by kids. Yeah, definitely. I don't think any kid should be seeing this. I don't think any kid should really be reading the Bible all the whole thing either. Like maybe they can they can read certain books like the Genesis, so like the first few books of Genesis and then or chapters of Genesis. I mean, Exodus has obviously a lot of things that they can read and all that. But like you go to like the actual story of Joseph, if you're not reading the VeggieTales version of that, it is definitely kids should not be reading that, right? You should wait till you're an adult to read some of the Bible, right? I'm just saying a lot of it is way too violent that for a kid to be reading. I mean like people die. I mean like it's literally describing like cutting off their fucking tips of their penis and collecting their foreskins and shit. It is literally describing castration. It is very like dark and disgusting in that book, but it's very good if you already are an adult and want to see like some of the darker themes of what we had to do to survive, basically is what it really comes down to. Because I don't think those are moral stories so much as stories of survival and faith. I think that's a good way to say it. So like you're not supposed to act like Joseph in that and just cut off everyone's dick. You know, you're not supposed to be Joseph chopping up everyone's dick and killing all their babies and their women, right? And all of the men too. You know, like you're not supposed to just kill everyone. And chop their dicks off if they're a dude. You know, that's not what you're supposed to do. It's a thing that happened once, but it happened in the book of Joseph. It's disgusting. It's vile. It's a act that had to be done for like the survival. I mean, I don't know about the force. I think that's more like just. I actually don't know. I have no idea why the fuck that happened. But I can understand like the other ones, right? And of course, like slave capturing and stuff. Yeah, everyone did it. So it's not really that like surprising. But like these days, slavery is very bad scene, and a lot of that is due to advances in faith of Christianity. Because slavery is of course the owning of another person. He'll probably try to say, oh, they use the word servant, but then they describe it clearly. It's physically owning someone as property. Yeah, it's slavery, dude. And it also, if you actually look at the history, the 1800s slavery, because I know he's going to bring that up. 1800 slavery was more regulated. The government just didn't follow through on those laws until after the 1860s. You know, like until after 1865, where there was a constitutional amendment requiring the government to fulfill those laws. Those laws weren't actually like paid attention to in some certain areas because of the 10th Amendment, which means if it's not a constitutional amendment, states' rights can kind of override it. You know, your state can override a lot of things, by the way, just so you know. If it's not in the Constitution, where the Ninth Amendment protects you from the state overriding it, the state can overturn any federal law they want. Um, just FYI. Just so you know, like how if it's not in the Constitution, you might you might want to actually yeah, you know what I mean?
In this grotesque and depraved film. But before we get into that, we would love for you to like this video and subscribe to the Good Fight Minute.
I'm just gonna skip that fucking ad. All right. Let's see. Yeah. It's fucking okay. Yeah. Patreon.
On a beautiful note, because that is
Terrifier is the #1 movie. Okay, you said the United States, not the world. Okay. Yeah, it's #1 in the United States because it's a cool movie, right? And okay, would I rather watch this or like the latest MCU schlock? You know, yeah, it's a movie that's good, and so people want to see it. It's interesting. People want to see the movie because it gives them something that they can't see from other movies. That's why you see movies for entertainment. Entertainment is best when it's unique, right? If you've already seen it a zillion times before, it's not as cool. And it's fiction. At the end of the day, everything in it, as long as you have a brain that works properly, at least, is you can tell it's fiction, right? You know, it's the same with like violent video games and violent news stories, right? Yeah, I can play violent video games. I can watch violent actions occur on the news and not want to do them. And the news is real life, right? But I know like the consequences are bad. And I also know, because I'm not just like this guy where I think only consequences, like this guy would only pretends because he thinks pretending to believe will get him saved from hell. He doesn't actually, like I said, this guy clearly, through his actions and words, does not actually agree with the Bible's like words of salvation, because if he did, he would be showing it through good actions, not through anger and hatred that's passive aggressive like this, right? He would be giving people food and shelter and stuff when they need it, so they would feel good, and then they'd be like, oh, why are you doing? And then you'd say, right? Then you'd say because God told you to, and like for your church and stuff, and that's how real Christianity spreads, through good actions and faith that require faith and all that, right? And give a sense of community as well. When you make people feel good, people hear the good news. This is the thing. He doesn't actually give people the good news. He doesn't give people the gospel. He doesn't evangelize good news. He evangelizes awful news. And so, when you hear him, there is no goodness here. The only people who would subscribe to this kind of thing are already Christian. The thing is, right? This kind of rhetoric will never bring anyone to Christ. Never. And the reason for it is literally put in the Bible. The reason why we have freedom of religion is because Jesus said, right? It's a very Christian thing. Jesus said that if a man doesn't want to believe, you cannot force him. And that includes the government, right? And the reason for that, right, is because in order to really believe in something, you have to choose to. If you don't want to, you're not going to choose to, right? If you're choosing to out of fear, you don't want to, you're not going to choose to, really. You're doing it to avoid persecution by man, not by God, right? And the other thing is, you shouldn't be choosing faith to avoid persecution by God either. You should be choosing faith because you genuinely feel saved by Jesus Jesus Christ, right? You should not be choosing faith because you feel that Jesus Christ will like send you to hell to be tortured forever and ever until the end of time if you don't. That's not a good reason. A good reason, like I said, a good reason, right? There, you choose for good, positive reasons. You want a positive feeling for a positive change in your life. This is why all of these ministries are grifts. Any ministry that has a hate-filled message will always be anti-Christian, and I'm just going to say satanic by nature. This guy is a Satanist. He's just a Satanist that says he's anti-Satanist, just like the anti-fascists say. The real fascists these days are anti-fascists, right? He's the real Satanist.
Wonderful note to start on,
He's
because
sort of like Kurt Copeland. That guy is literally looks like the devil and acts like the devil.
this is
Like any depiction of the devil, that's Kurt Copeland, right? That's Peter Popoff. That's this guy. You never see the devil really like literally act like Art. In fact, even in the movie, Art's not the devil. That little pale girl is, right? The guy who's doing all the violent killing, like of the worst caliber, it isn't even the actual like full on villain. He's just a servant of them, right? Art's just a slave of the actual villain, right? And the actual villain is the demon, right? Who and that's the thing. This guy doesn't actually get these things because he doesn't watch movies.
a
He
disgusting.
doesn't look at things for entertainment value. He sees that these things are popular and he wants to grift off them because he wants to steal money from gullible people.
Episode that we
He is a thief and a scoundrel, as I said.
have to go over, but
He's a liar. He's a Satanist.
when things are so upfront, when things are the number
he worships Satan and money.
one movie in our country that we live in, we need to talk about them, because you can't just sit around and say, oh, well, my children will never be bothered by that, or my friends, my neighbors, they would never be into that. And that's simply not the case. Movies like this don't make $18 million.
$18 million isn't even a lot of money, by the way. This is also kind of the funny thing. Like people are like, oh man, it totally bombed out Joker Folie à Deux. Kind of. Not really. It made more money like in a certain time frame, but Joker Folie à Deux made a lot more money in total. The reason it flopped is it just had a much a lamer plot, right? Like, just face it, the movie sucked, but also it flopped because the budget was like 10 times as high. So I mean, well, 20 times as high. So instead of needing $2 million to turn a profit, like, which would Joker Folie à Deux more than made that, right? It needed it needed over 200 million. So it needed a lot more money than this movie did to be successful. So this movie doesn't need to make nearly as much money, right? And the other thing is, look, the largest grossing movie of the day is The Wild Robot, which does look like a good movie. Now, this one might be because it's just the budget. It might fail, but because that's a high budget movie, right? Folie à Deux is kind of like a mid-budget movie, right? And so, like, this movie might still fail, but that's just because of how outrageous his budget is of Wild Robot. And this is just a wholesome movie, right? There's nothing really like he could say against this one. It's also kind of funny because it's actually the number one grossest of the day. It's just not the number one grossest of the weekend. But I also believe this movie came out before Terrifier 3 did. So it kind of defeats the entire argument anyway, because this one has more staying power. It's winning some days and barely losing on the weekend when it came out a week before, and so has far less like money earning hype potential on that weekend. And that's the other thing with like Joker Folie à Deux. It already earned most of its money by the time it like Terrifier 3 came out. So most of these movies, right? Except maybe Piece by Piece and Transformers 1. I think that also came out that day. So save for Transformers 1 and Piece by Piece, none of these movies are actually truly competing with Terrifier 3. So Terrifier 3 looks like it's got like maybe one other movie to look at, and this other movie looks like it's also, I think, piece by piece. That's probably also a low budget horror movie. So we have a bunch of low budget horror movies competing with each other, and yeah, a low budget horror movie. This one is doing better than this one. And these other movies, like they might be financial hits or flops because of how high their budgets are, but they're making plenty of more money in like the total and worldwide and all that than this one. But this one doesn't need to make that much money to make money because it's a very low budget film. It only has a budget of $2 million and a marketing of 1 million. So you get a 3 million or more money. It made a profit. It made about 40 million total, which is a lot of money, obviously. Um, but it's nowhere near what these other movies made, despite being at a loss from the theaters themselves, right? Like you count the gross income instead of the net income, all of these movies did better. Like at the end of their cycle.
Make more money.
Terrifier 3 just has a much better advantage of both being far more new of like an experience and also far cheaper to make. So it has the budget and the uniqueness advantages for the movie. Wild Robot is technically, I think, like a more unique film than that as well. But Wild Robot, I mean, it's even an original property, right? But Wild Robot, obviously, as though I feel like it just is so expensive. Some of these animated movies.
Then movies with Lady
I think
Gaga.
it did make its money back, but it has more of a hurdle than every single movie except maybe Transformers 1 on that list.
On Joaquin Phoenix in them if nobody is out watching them, including your friends and including those who profess Christ. And in fact, the director has even...
people watch these movies because they don't care what some like loser who steals money by pretending to be a Christian while professing a satanic message of hate and while not actually doing any Christian ministry of real Christian ministry actions. Yes, people don't care about your opinion. Guy from Good Fight Ministries
gone on record saying, actually, the Christian should like this movie, basically. Like, you shouldn't come at me. So I guess if there's a clear evil person, a clear good person, but that evil person is a clown that you try to make funny as they butcher people. And we haven't even gotten...
No, well, first off, he's a mime. He's called Art the Clown because mimes are a form of clown. So I guess technically he's a clown. But specifically, he's a mime. And it's a gimmick. Yes, he's a clown that is a silent clown that does, instead of the physical comedy you expect from a clown that's like just haha pies in the face, it's more brutal, right? Physical comedy, right? Yes, that's the point. He's a sick and twisted individual who also shits all over bathrooms and rubs it all over the windows and shit. Like, that's what he does in the first scene he's in the first movie, right? He literally rubs shit all over the place because he's so sick and twisted and disgusting that's a thing he thinks is okay. He's never depicted as a righteous man. He's never depicted as someone you should follow or anything, right? And none of the other people are depicted as bad either. None of his victims are depicted as inherently bad people. Like, there might be a character flaw you can find. It's vaguely surface level, Santa drinking at the bar or some shit, right? Okay. And maybe they're rude to him when he pisses on them and throws their drink in their face. In the third movie I'm talking about with that one. But there's nothing really evil or sinful about them, right? They're just having a fun night, and this guy comes in. They think at first they think, oh, he's not that big a deal. It's just a guy in a costume. He's having fun. And he's clearly giddy about Santa, so he thinks, he must just be a fun, mentally disabled guy. And then he finds out, after his two friends get shot and he gets brutally killed with a fucking liquid nitrogen shit, that he was absolutely wrong on that. But but the thing is, we know both from art's actions we've already seen and like all that art was evil, right? Because we already knew art was evil. We kind of knew what he was going to do, and he hints about the liquid nitrogen earlier by testing on a rat, by the way. um he said like they kind of show don't tell in this movie, which is very good storytelling, by the way. You should probably like actually take it like hints from this movie on how to tell a good story. Maybe that's what it is. You're not a good storyteller. I can tell clearly that you aren't a real Christian. You're a Satan worshiper in disguise. I can tell that very clearly by your literal like lack of a good fib, because you're clearly fibbing when you got Patreon links to like talking about a fucking how evil a movie is, right? While also not having any evidence of actual ministry work or help on your ministry's own website. Yeah, you're satanic, dude. You worship the devil more than any fucking actual Satanist does at this point. At least the Satanists are just edgy atheists at this point. You literally worship him.
Into
You
this
want to be him. You're just jealous of Satan. That's what
at
it
all,
is.
but I want to just play
You,
this
you envy Satan because he is a bigger name for evil than you. You're not a Christian at all.
little clip to give you an idea, just to give you a little taste of what the number one movie in America, which shows you how dark we have become as a country. You see,
No, we would have done this even if we were a Christian state. Have you not actually looked at an actual theocracy? They literally have Helengu Pabio in one of the few Christian nations of the world. There's an evil like very vile like minister called Helengu Pabio who makes snuff films with kids. Now, for this you don't know, the difference between Terrifier and a snuff movie is a snuff movie, they aren't actors, and the kids actually in those movies who die in the movie, that's their death. She films herself killing actual people and then sells it to people as propaganda. And that's the thing. When you're in an actual Christian nation, that's what you get to do. Because here's the thing. Christian nations aren't really Christian. They're enforcing a dogma that the Bible literally says not to do. The Bible says not to enforce dogmatically anything about it. It says to enforce it through good news and salvation and grace. That's literally why it's called evangelizing and gospel truth, right? It's not called, bully and oppress and use guns to intimidate. It's not called that, is it? It's not called that, but if you want the government to be your nanny, that's what ends up happening, which is why Christian nationalism is a fucking satanic idea. Like, it's literally the most satanic idea you can do because it twists Christianity's good messages on its head and inverts them into a genocidal message of hate and vitriol. Yes, I am absolutely against that concept. And there is no way to implement it other than that. There is no non-genocidal way to force people to have a religion. Okay, that's just how it works. That's why every Christian nation is evil. There's secular religions where Christianity is promoted, like England, or like you have like German now. Not that now they're not Nazis anymore. You have Germany, right? Italy and all that. And the United States. The United States would be a secular nation where Christianity is first and foremost. It's still the number one religion. Most people believe in it, right? Most people like the truths that Christianity brings to them. But most people are against like the idea, for good reason, of it being the state that they are in. And we only need to look at the only countries that actually do have state religions to see why. Because all of the Christian ones are just like all the Muslim ones. You go to the Middle East, all of that is a hellhole. Whether it's a Christian nation like Uganda or Nigeria, or whether it's a Muslim nation like Syria or Iraq or Palestine, or if it's a Jewish nation like Israel, they're all genocidal fucking monsters. And it's not because their faiths are bad, it's because having a religion be forced into the foundation of your government is actually antithetical to the actual message of your religion, which is why the most peaceful religions these days by like per capita and all that are like things like Shintoism, which have zero government religions, right? There is zero governments that implement Japanese Shintoism. You think if Japanese Shintoism was still like implemented into its government like directly, that it would be no, it wouldn't. You know, and the same with like Buddhism. When Chinese had Buddhism as its central government authority, Buddhism like did 100 million person genocide at one point, and no one would say that about Buddhism today. But you can, yeah, it's not good. Putting a religion as a government is not a good idea, and the Bible recognizes that, which is why it's against the concept.
In Proverbs chapter 8,
Jesus himself is against that concept. That's why we were founded as a Christian nation, to be secular instead of forcing Christianity, because that's more Christian values than this guy. Like this guy will probably think otherwise. Not really think. He'll grift otherwise. But yeah, that's how it works.
very last verse of Proverbs chapter 8, it warns of those who do not love the wisdom of God. Ultimately, what they love is death. They hate God. They hate who God is.
Right? It tends to bring people to like the Lord, right? It doesn't always. There's no 100% success rate on any tactic, but it has the most success. Being just a good person and guiding people through to salvation by being good and showing love and helping people with their needs tends to be the best way to help people get into the faith. And sometimes that doesn't work. And the Bible says to cut your losses with those people. It doesn't say to harass them and keep trying. It says to stop. It says to stop and let them, you can try later. Like, there's nothing that says you can't, like, wait a bit and try again and stuff. There's nothing that says you can't keep pushing, but you can't just keep to a point of harassment. And if you're not even allowed to harass them, you're definitely not allowed to use government force as a nanny state to enforce it.
And they love death and continuing to allow.
They love death. It's a movie. Yeah, it says the guy who wants to commit like what would probably involve a 120 million person genocide if you actually like implemented all this into the government of our very diverse 350 million population country. Yeah, you would have to cull about a third of us. Yeah, like no, my guy. Sick math. You are not a good person if you support these things. Okay? Like, I know you don't care. Like, you absolutely don't. You worship Satan. Like, you say you don't. But as I said, the devil is a liar. And the best fascists are the anti-fascists.
Allow yourself to watch these things. And as a nation, of course, that
like, Antifa are very fascistic. I think we all know that. They're very hypocritical. And so are people like this. He's very satanic. He knows he's very satanic. You might not, right? You, the viewer of his ministry, might not, but he is sending a satanic message.
Drips with the blood of the innocent children who have died here because of the laws that have been allowed and the things that have been allowed to be.
Okay, notice how he can't say any? That's because they aren't there.
Legally done in America. It should come as no surprise that the same people are going to be the ones running to the.
Notice how he can't say the group of people.
Box office for disgusting films like this. I hope that some of the religious imagery that is very clear in the film will also get you to see that I shouldn't be watching this as a believer.
You shouldn't be watching a movie because it has the Mother Mary. Like what? It has a person who's suffering at a very like painful amount and is chosen by angels to like fight demons, to have like a crown of thorns and very Jesus like imagery around her. And it has the demons mock Christian ideas before this, with like the guy hanging on. Yes, yeah, believe it or not, um, demons do that. Demons mock Christian tradition. Wow. A movie where demons are the bad guy shows demons being bad people and using the mythology of demons are bad people because they're an enemy of this guy. They kind of degrade symbols of that man before being defeated at the end. Yes, that's how it works. The whole point of showing these bad things is to get you to want him to lose. So when he loses, you feel, oh, finally, right? You know, you feel good. You feel relieved that good won against evil, right? And now sometimes evil wins against good in movies as well, obviously, like Infinity War and stuff, because sometimes you got to show that good doesn't always win if you don't fight the good fight, right? Sometimes fighting the good fight doesn't mean, what you think it does either. Sometimes you even got to lose some battles to win the real ones, which is what Infinity War is about. Like they had to lose that battle so they won the actual war in Endgame, right? Kind of thing. I still wish Endgame was the last movie just because of how bad it went after that. As well, obviously, Endgame was the last good MCU movie in my not really, but like they're out of ideas. Let's face it, they're just going places with it now. But yeah, I mean, this guy's gonna be like, well, you like superheroes. Well, Jesus once fought the dark side, who was the embodiment of the devil. So, well, how can you support like a guy named like a guy named Kal-El or Voice of God? A guy who's basically like a Christian figure created by Jewish American immigrants. Fighting a guy who's the embodiment of the devil. Why do you think that God should fight the devil in a movie? Like, yeah, I don't know, maybe because I'm Christian. Like, yeah, like, yes, I guess Darkseid doesn't do as gory a thing in like most of his depictions, sure, because comics are made more for kids and not adults, so they have less mature themes, right? Um, so yeah. So like the sick and twisted actions of Darkseid don't really look as sick and twisted on screen, although they're clearly more sick and twisted when you actually think of them for more than 5 seconds. I mean, like Darkseid literally puts like one of like the superheroes in the comics, he puts him in basically what can only be described as super hell. Like literally, like what he does is he puts him in an infinite death matrix of, yeah, he experiences infinite deaths across infinite timelines on infinite lives in the in increasingly painful ways, infinitely every second of his life from then on, to the point where he actually ceases to exist because his own soul of existence cannot take the amount of torture of being brutally killed over and over again till the so to the point where he experiences entire lives infinitely in like the blink of an eye, and they're all horrible, right? Yes, that's basically like a super hell. Like that's more vile than even the Bible depicts hell, right? Yes, he's a villain, right? He's a villain. He's a bad guy. And yes, the cosmology of DC is of reality. So because there's a lot more like cosmological concepts, the demon has to be more powerful than he would be in the Bible, because he has to actually have things he can't do, because if he was limited to the scope of the Bible's universe, he wouldn't physically be capable of like multiversal feats, because there's not a multiverse, right? But because there is a multiverse, he has to be capable of things like that, right? Because that brings him to a threat. Like, why would the devil not be the number one threat? Why would Darkseid not be the number one threat? He is, but only because of these. Yeah, yeah. You got to show like that the most evil guy is evil, in that he's capable of terrible things. And so with Art the Clown being a lot more grounded in like as a human, like he's more like everything in there. He's like basically just hell, hell, heaven, and like Earth, right? So it's a much smaller scope, right? So instead of being like, oh, you can just do this infinite death matrix thing like Dark Side does, he has to do it in a more personal way. So he takes his time with his victims. He's very brutal, right? And it shows you that like evil people who are extremely sadistic, right? So he's not powerful so much as he's sadistic, right? And he's not weak, but like he's not like like you could see like the U.S. military could take this guy down, right? But he's not supposed to be like an enemy like that. He's supposed to be someone so sick and twisted that he's evil, right? Just from his like how he enjoys the actions that he does. And so yes, the evil guy is depicted as evil. Yes, why would you want the evil guy not to be evil, right? Why would you want the evil guy to be good? That's what I want to know. Why should the evil guy be good for you to enjoy it? I want to know that. Why do you want the evil guy to be good? Right? Okay, maybe it's not good. Maybe the evil guy is just not evil enough because he's not gay or something, right? He's not gay and trans, and that's what you want. You want an anti-LGBT agenda, and that's just not in the movie. So you're like, oh, it's satanic because instead of like getting off to gay like porn, he's killing good people, and that's so vile, right? Depicting an evil man as actually evil and not just like enjoying his free time after a hard day's work, and he just isn't straight, man. Like this guy basically would be like, hey, look, if Art the Clown jerked off to furry porn, that was his evil. It'd be so fine, it'd be so base, just jacking that foodie cock. That's the real devil, right? The fuck is wrong with you?
And I probably should be
what do you expect the devil to be depicted as? Just jacking off to porn. Like, okay, watch Has Been Hotel. Watch the autism version of Satan. just my guy. Like there is no way where you are like getting like a dub on this thing. Just saying.
Able to warn my friends about the disgusting things that are being displayed in.
Oh, yep. Dad, go wait.
Well,
he talks about.
But then at the same time, he could be seen as a.
And the interview is basically like he says he's not Christian, right? Like that's basically the point of this one, right? It has Christian themes. It's inspired by Christianity, but the guy doesn't want to say he's Christian. And really, what that comes down to is he doesn't want to tie his beliefs to the movie that is supposed to be themed after Christianity, right? But isn't ultimately the Bible. It's not the Bible. He's not telling the Bible. He's not sending you religion or a path to salvation. He's sending you a good time, right? But he's not gonna sugarcoat it as this is the Bible 2.0. He's not a scam artist like the loony who made this video. He is, however, going to say that he thinks that the beliefs and the the mythology and the theology and all that are great. He thinks that they have a good story, great messages, and just a powerful sense of scale and character, which it does, right? And so yeah, like even if he is just some atheist or whatever, he's inspired by it, right? And yet somehow he's just having fun with something he doesn't even believe in, I guess, is what this guy will try to say. But because he's having fun with like the Bible, like he's having fun with biblical concepts, which might later turn him Christian after he makes like my guy. Yeah, there's no way where you win like your argument here. But yeah, like he just talks about it. Yeah, parents guy. Yeah, okay, yeah, like yes. There are things in your. Oh yeah, let's go here. I haven't watched this part yet.
Now I don't want to go deep in.
Okay,
This film goes something like this. On Halloween, after a night out of trick-or-treating, children Tia and Timmy are surprised to find an unmarked VHS tape in their candy bag. Together with their babysitter, Sarah, they watch the tape, which contains 3 stories featuring a homicidal clown named Art. Now, I don't want to go deep.
You can plagiarize Wikipedia, yes. Yeah, you can steal from Wikipedia. I
into
see.
these stories, but just to let you know, at some point,
I guess he's just quoting it. Who cares?
in watching these stories, Satan is involved, and
like, yeah, he's the villain.
To not because I can't use
He dies at the end. That's how it works. At the end of the series, he dies.
certain words on YouTube, takes advantage of someone that they watch in this film. The young girls are put to bed, and the babysitter keeps watching, and then all of a sudden,
young girls. There's. Did this guy just trans the boy in the movie? The main, like, the one that's more like the shitty, like because there's 2 kids, right? There's one that's more of a shitter, and then there's like the girl, right? And obviously, like, it just kind of spoil it. The one that's kind of like get a little smarmy attitude, is a bit of a shitter, is the boy, right? Like, you do know that he's a boy, right? Like, he's a male child. And, like, he's not trans things either. Like, by the way, I'm talking about you transing them, right? Because you're like looking at a clear, it's a male actor playing a male character, and they're a child. You're transing a child verbally because you are just so fucking like I don't know, maybe you're just a porn addict at that point. I don't fucking know. It's a literal dude, you know? Like I don't know what to tell you. You looked at a dude, like just a literal dude. That, like, he's not trying to even like pass as a woman at all, right? He's just a dude. You know, he's not trans at all. He's just a dude. He's not dressed in. He's just a dude. Just a normal looking dude. Like, I can even like look at, like, I can bring this up, right? Like, I can bring this up right now. He is literally just fucking making shit up now. All Hallows Eve kids, right? Kids. Let's see. Where's the kids? Let's see. That's right, like the end of the movie. The tape. I'll just say the tape. Let's see here. Oh shit, what the fuck? That's not it. That's not it. I put safe search off too, so I got titties. Gotta take that part out of the video. But I'm gonna put that in Blender now. Take that out the video. Because that's my video editor apparently. Alright, well. Okay, let's just go Google. Bing's just being stupid right now. As always, like, Bing is like, you have to use AI to do this. Yeah. Oh yeah, I looked up Hitler's corpse to own like some fucking Nazis. I'm like, hey, you think not Hitler's here's how his story ended. Why don't you follow your leader? Like, I hate Nazis, right? I'm like always like, follow your leader, dipshit. Like, show his corpse off. Because he killed himself, right? All right, All Hallows Eve, right? And then kids. I think this will just work here, right? Yeah, like, yeah. All right, let's see. Let's see if we can just find it. That's the second movie. I'm gonna talk about that one. Second movie has nothing to do with the original, by the way. Yeah, look at this. These are the kids, right? The one's the girl. He said girls, right? Where's the S here, right? So he's talking about her and the girls. Well, so there's a girl, witch costume and all that. Is that a girl? Are you telling me that is a girl? That is a dude, motherfucker. That is a dude. That is a whole ass male. You know, that is an XY born and raised male, motherfucker. Fuck's wrong with you? fucking
Art
trees are getting on your ass for falsely misgendering like a fucking clearly a dude. What the fuck is wrong with you? Dudes spending too much time looking at Futanari thinks dudes are girls now. Futanari, femboys, right? Looking at like, oh, Astolfo's a girl. Bridget, I guess Bridget is trans now, but like even in the earlier games, it was like, you know, the femboy, right? Bridget's a girl, Vivian, and like actually, to be fair, that's also like, but that one's weird because they're a femboy in the original Japanese, but they're trans in both the English and Japanese remakes, and then they're just a straight up just a normal girl ghost in the English. It was weird, um, because man, it kind of doesn't work with the story. So to make this entire whole new thing up that she's just ugly, even though she doesn't even look ugly. It's weird. Anyway, but yeah, he look at a stall. This guy is a porn addict. I can tell you that. You know what he's looking at on his off time after he's like makes his video. He's going off a Stolfo, right? He's going after this guy, right? He's just jacking off to pictures of this guy. Like every right wing dude, he tells on himself, very much. He's just jacking off to Stolfo, and Bridget. He's doing Bridget from Guilty Gear, right? Yeah. You called yourself out, by the way, by doing that. Just so you know, we know what you jack off to now. Thank you for telling us that you are into Futanari and traps. You're into entrapment. You want a man to cross dress and fuck you.
Clown who
It's what he gets off to. He has admitted it at that point. These guys aren't that. These guys aren't that that hard to capture, right? This is the thing. Most transphobes aren't actually transphobic because they hate the concept of transness. They're transphobic because they want to make it fictional again, right? They're like, oh, it's icky because it's real now, right? That's why they hate it. That's why they want to get rid of it. And obviously, you might be like, well, phobia is not with fear. Panic is actually what phobia means. Phobia means to be like Phobos. Phobos is the Greek deity that means panic, and panic includes, of course, hysteria and all that. So propaganda, anything where you have propaganda against something, is inherently phobia, right? And so this guy has, I don't know, I guess good movie phobia as well. He's afraid of good movies. He's a fun phobe. That's what he is. He's fun phobic.
would then be the star of Terrifier.
He is fun phobic. That's going to be the title of this video. Fun phobic satanic ministry, good fight ministries, hates a fun
1,
movie.
2, and 3.
Hates Terrifier 3.
Then comes out and actually gets involved in the story, tapping
That's
on
the title of the movie now, by the way.
the glass.
I had a different idea for the title, but now that's going to be the title of the movie.
Of the film, and then killing the 2 young children, which has disgusted a lot of people.
But you said girls before because you don't actually fucking watch movies. Yeah, and yes, we know how the movie ends. Yes, he kind of this is also, by the way, the tape scene is most likely because they technically aren't canon. But if they were, it would be way after the movies we already have, because it would be this is before the final movie. Because I'm pretty sure Terrifier 4 or 5 is going to be the last movie. Right? Well, 4 or 5 is, right. If it's 4, or 5, it doesn't matter. It's going to end in Art's death. Art dies at the end, right? That's how this story goes, right? We all know that, but we also know that there's going to be a lot of struggle there, because you're struggling against evil, right? Evil isn't going to just die tonight, as much as the guys want to chant it, in Halloween Kills. It's not gonna die tonight. It's gonna die 5 years from now because of a shitty sequel where they
in terms of the film, but not enough to actually care enough to not go and see it, sadly enough. But
no one cares at all because it's just a movie.
It's interesting.
It's fictional. Just like that Astolfo image you fap to. That's fictional, right? Astolfo isn't real. Astolfo can't hurt you. Astolfo you might jack off to Astolfo secretly. You might have actually just actually saved some of those images on your computer. I bet you'd have. But guess what? I bet you're doing it right now. This laptop thing you got there, right? You're not showing us what's on screen, motherfucker. I bet you're looking at trans porn right now. But that's beside the point, right? You can look at what you want to look at. You can look at femboys, trans people, futinaris, all that all day long. I will not care. But I do find it funny that you're not even like okay with movies that are fun. Like it's fiction, my guy. And also, technically, right? I mentioned anime, right? Like, a lot of anime has like lolly stuff, right? And the whole thing about like why people who hate lolicons end up being exposed as pedophiles is because lollies aren't real. So these sexualized images of like kid characters is fine because it's not real. Now, once you fail to distinguish reality from fiction, it becomes bad, right? And so the thing is, every single person who can't distinguish that these drawings are not real people tends to be a pedophile because that's why they're thinking that a drawing of a person is a real person, right? They don't have the ability to turn off their dick when they are in reality, right? Their fetishes of fantasy become out in reality for people like this. You know, and what's funny is that's kind of like what Art the Clown is. He's a sick fetishistic individual. He fetishizes his kills. He's very much a disgusting sex pest, just like this pastor.
Is it got me thinking about.
And like if that's the thing. He's a sex pest in the movie, and this guy's a sex pest in real life. If this guy is seen around a school, I want to like have the FBI, put a dot on like the on like his location, just so they know, like you shouldn't be around there.
All
Just saying. He's kind of out telling on himself a bit too much here.
Hallows Eve as a whole. And one of the
Oh yeah, origins of Halloween.
things that you'll notice when you see apologists for celebrating Halloween as a Christian is that people will point to All Hallows Eve. People, apologists online for Halloween, will say, you know what, we can celebrate because it's actually a Christian holiday. Because if you just accept Rome as a part of the actual body of Christ, then yes, the Roman.
You mean my guy, just so you know, where do you think Israel was located? Israel wasn't a country for thousands of years, because they were always owned by another country. You do know that, right? Israel went from being the property of the Babylons to the property of the Greeks to the property of the Romans to the property of like other Europeans to the property of Muslims, and then only after World War II were they actually like allowed to own their own country again. And even then, they only got a little bit of it, right? You do realize that they have like Israel hasn't been like an actual proper nation for like over 3,000 years. Like yeah, yes, Rome wasn't, yeah, like it wasn't that way. It was actually the other way. Rome's adopted Christianity. Rome's adopted Judaism. It wasn't the other way around. You know why? Because they were the ones that was pushing their views on society. And in fact, fun thing, by the way, he mentioned the beast in this video, or like at one point.
Catholic Church, by the way.
For those who don't know, the beast refers to Nero Caesar, not the devil, Nero Caesar. And there's a few tricks you can do. First off, Nronqsr is how you spell it in Greek, right? That if you, the way you do isosceles in Hebrew, right, is the N's mean 50, the R's mean, I believe they're 200, right? The S is 100, and then you have the O is I believe it's a 1, right? Oh no, it's a 6, right? O is 6. No, O is O is 10. No, let's see. I gotta remember like these values, right? So O, right? O and N are the ones that pop up. So O is 100. No, O is 100. N is 50. And then let's see. R is 100, right? R is 100, and then Q is 50, and then S is 6, something like that. Yeah, S I think is 6. Yeah, so or maybe it's Q is 6, S is either way. So you have what does that number add to? Well, 666, right? But here's the kicker. See, this guy will probably doesn't know this because he doesn't actually read the history of his own religion, because he's not a Christian. But earlier, like there are early versions of the New Testament before the Council of Nicaea, right? Where Christians of both of different sects that were sprung up interpreted it as directly going from, instead of going from Greek to do Hebrew Histophiles, they translated the name from the Latin to Hebrew, where they took off the N, right? The one N at the second N. Instead of Neron Caesar, it's Nero Caesar, right? So it goes 616, right? And that's kind of how you know 616 and 666 were both numbers of the devil, and they are both literally Nero's name. The other thing you know, because this is one that's not really directly in the Bible, but it's hinted at very obviously through history, Nero, after genociding Christians in what's known as the Fires of Rome, was nicknamed the Beast. And this was all before Revelation was written, right? So the Beast refers to Nero Caesar. Like literally and historically, like he literally had that nickname. And it was because he was killing Jews and Christians. And so they put him as the most evil person there is. Now, the thing is, the Beast represents, of course, not just one person, but anyone like that. So anyone who is genocidal, be it Hitler, be it Stalin, anyone like that, would be the Beast. So the Beast really refers to people like this guy who are genocidal. And the reason I say he's genocidal is, like I said, as I've said plenty of times, in order to actually have militant Christian enforcement, you must have a militant enforcement. You must have a nanny state. You must have a communistic rule, authoritarian rule over your people. And I think you can get that. That requires you, like, if people don't obey the exact terminology you say, they get executed, and they get executed very quickly en masse at the beginning. And when you execute millions of people en masse, because they belong to a group that doesn't agree with you, or is culturally or racially different than you, right? You call that a genocide. Yeah. He supports a genocide. So he is the Beast. By the Bible's own definition of the Beast, by the way. Because that's really what that means. It refers to the actions of Nero Caesar. Nero Caesar is a code in the Bible for that, just so you know. And it doesn't really refer directly to Nero Caesar, but anyone who is like that aspects, right? And obviously it makes sense. Someone who kills millions of people because he doesn't like them, yeah, that's pretty satanic, I'd say.
I'm sure there's plenty of people in
It's
Rome
a lot
that
more satanic than anything in this movie.
actually love Jesus.
But I'm not saying that this movie, Art isn't satanic, because Art obviously is. He's a psychopath controlled by a demon who murders people in extremely brutal ways, in excessively brutal ways. But that's kind of the thing. He's the villain, right? Okay, so he's the villain in his movie. But he's basically a less bad version of what this guy wants for non-Christians in America. Yes, exactly. I link things. I connect dots.
But the Roman Catholic Church,
I have a brain that seeks patterns, just basic biology.
You just accept that they're part of the Christian church. You can just take their holidays and begin celebrating them. Interestingly enough, that is the same tactic that they used with pagan holidays. And in fact, the History Channel put out a documentary espousing and expressing this very thing.
How did these...
The history, okay, yeah. uh, the History Channel. You mean the thing where ancient aliens and pawn stars are on 24/7? I mean, like, when have they been relevant to actual history, like, at all now? My guy, if you maybe that's why you're a racist piece of shit too. Like, I mean, like everyone knows that the whole point of Ancient Aliens is like a bunch of racists are like, well, white people didn't know it, so it must be aliens.
These ancient traditions
You know, like
survive into
that's
our
like
modern
a
era.
fucking piece of shit show.
In Western culture, they were
Pawn stars
preserved by,
can be
of
fun,
all
right?
people,
Because, it's all
Christians.
fake. It's all like it's actually that show is there's nothing real about the show, but yeah.
In a bizarre twist of history, as Christianity spread, it adopted and reimagined pagan folkways rather than try to stamp them out. This made it easier to convert pagans. So thank the church for inspiring the creepy essentials of Halloween. But wait, there's more. The church also helped establish the tradition of trick-or-treating, sort of. It all started during the Middle Ages on All Souls Day, when priests told Christians to pray for souls trapped between heaven and hell in a netherworld they called purgatory.
Yeah, it is really
What does that? Where's the call out? Okay, so they believe there's another like version of like not quite heaven, not quite hell. All right, okay, yeah. That specific church does, yes. That not all Catholics even believe in that, but all right. Um, well, I guess like yeah, not all Catholics because all Christians really would be Catholics, right? But also not all like Roman Catholics even believe that because there's multiple sects of Roman Catholicism, which this guy will obviously leave out because he is trying to sell you a message of Satanism while being a Satanist. Like this guy basically might as well be like, I know from experience, right? Like I know from experience that porn leads you to like a trans ideology because I jacked off to a Stolfo. Okay. All right. Well, okay. So you think Astolfo's hot then, right? Like these guys tell on themselves, right? I bet you if I watch that like documentary, it'll kind of like make it very, very apparent. But I'm not going to watch it because I don't really feel like paying this obvious charlatan money. But yeah.
interesting to hear, from the history
Oh, ad again. All right. Oh.
on top of them, and now they tell you it's
Yeah. All right, so Halloween.
a saint. Very interesting that we've seen where they have taken the pagan gods and just slapped a cross on top of them, and now they tell you it's a saint. So it seems like that's what.
Do you know what a god is? Right? This guy doesn't. So a person who is a Christian, like Saint Nicholas, right? It's like the origin of Santa, right? Is a guy named Niklaus who gave people presents and stuff, right? He was a Christian, you know that, right? Like he was going to church and stuff. He wasn't going to like what everything like pagan temples were, right? These guys weren't pagans, and they also weren't gods. But okay.
What's going on?
You
But before
don't know anything about history. That's for sure. You don't. Maybe you should get your source from actual historians and not the people who tell you that that Jesus is actually an alien because the pyramids were made by black people, and that's not a thing apparently. Even though they actually weren't, like Egyptians weren't even really black necessarily, but that's why like they think their ways. You think Egyptians were black. They're actually more like Middle Eastern looking, just like you would think, because that's where they look like basically the same that they do now, right? But that's beside the point. They think, people of color, you can't be intelligent enough to build this thing that we objectively have documents of them being artisans and all that, and like, it was just a bunch of slaves, and then we have documents that it wasn't. although there was slave labor, it was still a lot of slave labor for like building other things. Pyramids were actually not built by slaves. They were all paid very well because, as it turns out, slavery doesn't create anything of value. You objectively can't through slavery, which is why you notice every single slave trade throughout human history, including Egypt, although this guy might think they built the pyramids in the Bible, but they did not. The pyramids were built by artisans who were paid extremely well. Now, it's hard work, sure, but it wasn't slave labor. Slave labor did build a lot of things in Egypt, but it wasn't the pyramids. And like I said, the reason why, look at anything else with history, throughout history with slavery. Slaves do menial labor that no one wants to do. So like farming and stuff, right? Picking fruit and cotton and all that, right? That's what slave labor is. It's the basic shit anyone can do that's hard on your, like, physically, but it's very easy to understand how to do it. So you keep them stupid because they like, and all that, because if they're smart, they'll like figure out how to change that to their advantage. That's why they keep them uneducated as well. If you educate a slave, they end up figuring out that this backbreaking work isn't all they have to do for like a place in like the United States. So then they end up like it becoming a writer or something, and then your whole thing goes kaput, right? And you start an abolitionist movement about that, right? And that's kind of the thing. Slaves have to be dumb for not just obeying their abusers, because I'm not going to call them anything else, right? They're abusive, right? But they're also going to be if they're educated, they're also gonna like figure out better things to do. And that's the thing. A slave can't, because the reason why they keep them uneducated is so they don't know that they can just do like actual good work that people value, that people would want to pay them for, instead of treating them like shit for, right? And that's the thing. Slave labor died the moment capitalism began. It was a slow death, sadly. We should have been faster. But capitalism has this funny thing of it like thrives when people create value, which slave labor, as I said, doesn't. Slave labor is for the menial tasks no one wants to do. So when you get to a point where you can just industrialize that for robots to be the real slaves now, well, now there's no profitability in that, and so slave labor dies just naturally. In fact, most countries it did, because most countries, after they saw what America was doing with capitalism, they did some capitalistic changes to their societies as well, implemented, instead of monarchies, to parliament, and very quickly most of Europe abandoned slavery because it just wasn't profitable, right? And now America, we had like obviously the whole Civil War, and really that was because the Confederates were breaking the 10th Amendment by going into other states who had laws against what they were doing, and they stole slaves back, and people called them out for their obstruction of the 10th Amendment. So they seceded, and then they got mad and always will whine and bitch that we immediately put a military force after they seceded and declared themselves an enemy nation, that we are going to war with them. So we went to war with them immediately after they did that, because, as it turns out, you have the right to secede. You don't have the right to become an enemy nation and then not get your shit kicked in, though. It turns out once you abandon the Constitution, you are no longer bound by it, and therefore we are no longer bound by it either, on your land, right? So that's basically why that happened. In fact, it was about states' rights and a little bit about slavery, but mostly states' rights. But the states' rights were not the rights people think. It was actually the South, the Confederates, who kept disobeying those states' rights. And then they got mad and tried to twist us going to war with an enemy nation that declared itself an enemy nation as abusing their states' rights, as if we actually have to abide by anything about them once they declare themselves a foreign nation. We didn't have to. We didn't have to. We didn't. And there you go.
We're even getting to that part to talk about that a little bit. Joe, it is very interesting that we have a situation where it's obviously a clown, being used. And it just seems like when it comes to the world, they love to take the things that are supposed to be innocent, whether it is, let's have old Betty White cussing up a storm and acting like a perverse person, which she was until she passed, or let's have little kids cuss, or whatever it is, or let's use a clown and make him menacing and disgusting.
Clowns were never wholesome. I don't even know this, but like most kids are afraid of clowns. Some kids are fine with clowns, right? It's sort of like Chuck E. Cheese, but at least Chuck E. Cheese, most kids are okay with it. There's just all no, most kids are okay with it now that that they aren't creepy anymore. To be fair, like in the 70s, I was like looking like who the fuck, who the fuck thought that was a good idea to be around, like bring kids into, right? Every kid I know looked at like the ones that still had the 70s model in the 90s, because I grew up in the 90s, and was freaked the fuck out because they were fucking creepy as hell, right? And it's kind of the thing with clowns. Like some clowns, I was okay with, but other clowns just gave me a vibe, And so when I was a kid, I just fucking avoided those guys, right? Sometimes. And then, maybe if they were like a little, had more of a friendly energy when I was around them, then maybe I would not be as creeped out. But clowns were never really like a thing everyone just accepted. I'm just going to say this. The original position of the jester or clown was basically a comedic advisor of the king, right? Like they were literally like the third-hand advisor of kings, because they were cynical comedians who would insult the king when he needed to be insulted. And because they would put jokes around their insults, the king would respect them a bit more than if the other advisors said the same thing, I guess, or something. But because they were basically there to be comedians that would, be very insulting to the king when he was doing something shitty, they were kind of like second-hand advisors, basically, right? But they weren't like these innocent concepts. They were literally like George Carlin's and Dave Chappelle's at the time. Like they were very edgy, very like raunchy people, right? They were fine. They were good, like people, I guess, for like, it depends on which king they served, I guess, or whatever. But they were very like cynical and rude and all that, right? Clowns from the get-go were never like this innocent thing. I don't know, like there's a reason they're all over horror, right? And it's not to show a thing that was once thought of as innocent as corrupted. Although that does happen with horror, that isn't the case with clowns.
And grotesque, but also give him honk honk, and make it all funny. Just seems like this is the MO.
Yeah, since forever it seems, Satan has always come as an angel of light, as we know.
Yeah, Satan has come in angel's light. No, you don't look like an angel, and neither does this guy. I don't know. There's just something about like the way you two like look and talk and act, and how you profess to be Christians but don't actually do anything Christian. Yeah, there's just something about like that that aura that of you guys are hypocrites who steal money from people and scam your audience and lie to people about history and try to ruin everyone's fun by like pushing satanic propaganda into their faces on the guise of Christian propaganda, because you worship the devil and want to spread the word of Satan in a way, but that if you do, they're gonna think you're just an edgy atheist Redditor bullshitter. So that you have to put it in there the guise of it's not Satanism, it's Christianity these days, I guess. I don't fucking know. I do, but I don't know the best words to describe it. But yeah, these guys, just devil worshippers.
Through the serpent promising godhood, divinity to Eve. It's interesting too when you think of how Satan rolls out, perversion. The Kinsey syndrome, one of our videos that if you haven't seen, it's an eye popper. Kinsey would try to promote homosexuality and so forth through various means. But one of the things he used, and he acknowledged it, was using the cowboy. He actually talked about using the cowboy, on his horse and everything to model homosexuality. He talked about how, cowboys have sexual relations between each other and so forth. A lot of stuff he said was not based on history, of course, but he's trying to make it acceptable. The Marlboro Man.
There were gay cowboys. I hate to tell it to you. Gay people exist in every job. To be fair, I don't really see why choosing the cowboy would, because cowboys were just like farmers. They aren't the cool heroes of every Western movie. They're cattle ranchers. They rattle cattle, right? Like the ranch cattle, right? They bring cattle back to the ranch. That's their job. Their entire job is to make sure that the cows are okay, so that you can eat them and milk them and stuff. That's all they did. This whole cowboy shit, with sheriffs and that's not cowboys. That's fantasy cowboys. Just like pirates aren't made of rubber and have the ability to command people to do what they want or anything like that. That's One Piece. That's not real pirates. Real pirates just download movies illegally on the internet, right? Real ninjas, most likely didn't dress like the Hollywood ninja, but also, were mainly probably just more like regular spies than anything, like just people in the government who just took orders from samurai on who to guess information and stuff from, and they didn't really wear this very obviously all are obviously ninjas disguises. In fact, some of them wore farmer outfits and stuff, that's where the myth that they were all farmers comes from. It's actually they would dress up as common folk, because it's easier sometimes to get information from the common folk while acting and looking like a common folk than if you look like an aristocrat, right? And it's also way easier than if you dress up in as the Hollywood ninja costume as well, right? A lot of these things are made up, just so you know. Chuck Norris was not a cowboy. He was a cool actor and a very very influential fitness advocate and all that. And very he's had a lot of good things about him, right? He's not a cowboy and never was. I hate to tell you this, Pastor Joe Schimmel, but Walker Texas Ranger was fictional. Every single Clint Eastwood movie, right, was fictional. All those John Wayne movies you liked as a kid, they were fictional. They weren't real cowboys. Half of them weren't even what a cowboy their job is. A cowboy's job was to range cattle. That's their entire job description. That's what they did. The idea of them being sheriffs, no. Maybe they could have been two jobs havers, right? Maybe they could have been a sheriff and a cattle rancher. That's not out of the possibility. There were people who worked two jobs back then too to make ends meet. But at the end of the day, a cattle rancher or a cowboy, right, is a different job than a sheriff or a plumber, right? Or a outlaw, which isn't even an actual job. But some of them are apparently. Clint Eastwood is usually a criminal who does the right thing. You know that, right? The outlaw, right, is a criminal who does the right thing, just like the the Revolutionary War were terrorists who were on the right side, right? That is what those words kind of mean, rebel, outlaw. Rebel means terrorist, outlaw means criminal, right? You know that, right? You know what words mean, right?
man, using it,
You know, they weren't actually cowboys, right?
for cigarettes, But it's interesting.
like
Years
that's
later,
all, like,
wow, Brokeback Mountain did
like
shot.
that happened, right? Like that, like not the like movies themselves, but like the like a lot of the cowboy like stuff happened, right? There were towns that were overrun by criminals that had to like be overrun eventually. But yeah.
Shocked me. I'm like, they've got a couple cowboys and they're hooking up and so forth in the gay relationship. I thought, oop, that's right out of Satan's playbook. And he
It's right out of Satan's playbook. Okay. Um, why? Explain it.
loves to use clowns. I mean, think of story time. Satan rolls that out to countless, tens of thousands and perhaps way more children, and government funded, our taxpayer money used to have transsexuals.
Okay. No. That's drag queen storyteller. That's not transsexuals. That's not what that is. Um, you clearly you don't know what words mean again. It's very funny. You don't know what basic English means. You failed first grade.
Try to propagate their belief systems and
No, I mean some of it's bad, like the stuff with the bar shit, right? Where like they had like a drag queen prostitute. That was disgusting, right? And that person was like this thing called put in prison. They were like rightfully so thrown in prison for that. But what belief system? They're reading like Harry Potter, or like maybe like they're reading like like some like those little books with like the fruit people are in it or something, like where there's like this is my house or something like that. They're just reading books. Like maybe like there's some like some of them are maybe bad, but like no one cares, right?
they're
Like what it really comes down to is it's just weird, but like there's nothing really bad about that. There is something bad about like that bar shit, because that involved actual like pedophilia. There's levels to this where when it gets to a certain point, it's bad, right?
their wickedness before
What wickedness?
our children dressing up like clowns. So we've really got to realize, and as Christians, we need to be aware that this.
Where's the wickedness? Also, where's the dressing up like clowns thing? They look weird. There's also drag queens. It's a job, by the way. You get paid to do it at a bar usually, but not always at a bar. There are obviously like with drag queen story, there's other venues of applications. You just dress weird to put an aesthetic on. You know that, right? Like you just like the whole point is that they look weird, yes, but they're not clowns. They're not transsexuals. So like those are already debunked. Also like you know what transsexual means, right? Like if like a person in a dress is at the very most a transvestite. A transsexual is someone who would identify as a woman and probably be on HRT and shit, not just wearing a fucking like weird dress and putting on this massively like it's supposed to look ugly anyway because it's like a macabre aesthetic makeup, right? Like that, right? Like the whole point of that is kind of to be macabre and stuff. And he's not meant to be gross. He's just meant to be like, hey, look, this is kind of weird. And you're kind of supposed to laugh at it. I guess you could argue that's clownery, maybe. But yeah, you're not supposed to take this seriously, I guess is a good way to say it.
This is very calculated,
But what's calculated here? What's very funny is, like I said, the Weimar Republic was Jewish. You know what? Like that's where like this all like stems from, is that Jewish people were like are not anti-trans and anti-gay and stuff. And so Hitler hated them for that reason. So he genocided them. This is called the Holocaust 2.0 that you're trying to push. It's very funny how you talk about a person like talks about there might have been some gay cowboys or something as your argument, while literally repeating Weimar Republic like anti-Weimar Republic propaganda talking points, in modern day, from like the Nazis, those guys, as your argument for why a movie that has nothing to do with any of that is satanic, and also like why those things are satanic. You haven't proven that either, by the way. Um, like like maybe I don't know source on all of these things.
To push the, to
Like I put more source on some of these things being bad than this guy has, because I actually know, like, hey, look, there, when it gets to involving like kids getting like balls in their face or something, that's gross. That happened very rarely, but it happened, and it was gross, and it should never have happened. But it did, and like these guys will like forever and ever until the end of time try to use that as a straw man, as everyone is like that, I guess. Because they only know groupthink. They are not individuals. They are not people. They are group, right? They are not people. They are group. So why don't we treat them like that? You want to be treated as you aren't a person, you are a group of people. Well, okay, fine. You're a hive mind of people rather than a person. That means you're a mushroom, right? You're a fungi, right? You are not a human at that point. You identify as a fungus, my guy. And so as a fungus, you are no longer given human rights. There we go. You want to be a Therian mushroom, man. There you go. That's what happens. It also means you have 1,000 genders and all that, because mushrooms are not just hive minds on like the thought process and stuff, but they'd also be like basically every single like fungi cell is its own organism, because they're actually all like single cellular organisms that kind of just form a multicellular hive mind, right? So they'd they're not just they're not like it's not one mushroom, it's trillions of mushrooms that make up that one mushroom in reality, right? And so like they're not all the same person, I guess, or gender or anything like that, right? Because it's all different organisms. There's males, there's females in that mushroom, right? It's a lot of different creatures make up the same one, right? That's what a hive mind is, and that's what you believe you are, and that's like the closest thing in nature to that, right? So you wanna sexually identify as a mushroom. Okay, you want to sexually identify as a mushroom. All right. You are a drug, and and you are a fungus. You are not a person, though. Maybe we can use you to cure the disease of like I don't know, like fucking like an infection of a hernia, or an infection like on like after someone gets a surgery for their hernia, they need to rub like some the mold on there, to make sure they don't die. I don't fucking know what you're gonna do, but that's your use from now on. You get rubbed on infectious wounds, to like and all that to prevent infection. That's what you want to identify as. We'll go there, right? But no, you don't want to identify as that. You want to have your cake and eat it too, and say you're actually identifying as a person while having no original thought or intelligence of any kind, right? You are basically spitting in the face of God by refusing to use the brain God gave you. And it's very funny that they're just talking about uh like these things that they clearly just fapped to the other day. Like the guy you are talking to, right? You do realize that the guy you're talking to just admitted to being into trans porn like during this thing, right?
increase mass rebellion.
Like he didn't do it in a way that was direct. He admitted it though. Like I said, I know these guys. They're chasers. What a chaser is a guy who's addicted to trans porn that acts transphobic. To hide that that's what they're all about, right? They're all fapping of tranny dick after this thing off screen, right?
Against God.
We like
Yeah,
I know this stuff. I've met
I think
thousands of
with most
like
people,
this.
hopefully, as you're
Mostly on Twitter, to be fair, but yeah.
if you're on this
Glinner, Glinner, that like fucking like Asian, like the Korean dude, what's his name? Like Cogman Lee or something like that. What's another one? Like Matt Walsh to a degree. He does chase. He just doesn't do it all the time. That's not all the time he's doing it, right? Tim Pool, quartering, Dr. Disrespect. A lot of these guys are chasers. It's someone who is only transphobic to hide the fact that they're in a transport. Alex Jones is another one. Yeah. My guy. Like, you guys aren't like that. You guys aren't slick.
Show, watching this show, and so forth.
People have eyes and brains that work.
That you
saying. Your audience is extremely small, so the people watching this video, most of us aren't going to be in your audience, and most of us have been around before. We know what you're up for.
Do see that it's all for a reason.
I can see right through you and around you. That's how fucking hollow you guys are.
There's a reason why this is the grossest, most grotesque, goriest film of all time, and now guess what? It's #1 in the box office. That's crazy to me.
No, it's not. That's literally called a selling point.
It's one thing. I mean, because a lot of kids can't go and watch it, supposedly, right? Of course, they're going to see it. Of course, they're going to see clips while they're on Twitter and Instagram and so forth. And really, Art the Clown has become a very popular meme. I saw him as a meme long before I even read anything about the show. I was like, what is this guy? He looks really menacing, and now you're looking at it and you're like, oh yeah, it's no surprise that they would take something that's supposed to be innocent and make it this.
There's literally nothing innocent about it ever.
Disgusting. And
these guys are clowns, honestly.
I mean, you have people, Joe, fainting at the box office. In fact, there was a lady who went to go write a story about this to say, this isn't true. People aren't really fainting. And someone actually fainted and busted their head open at the showing of this film. That's how gross it is. But Joe, one of the other things that
okay, so one person couldn't handle a movie where a lot of the reasons why they bought the ticket in the first place is to see if how the farther buttons could be pushed. That's kind of a thing. You kind of go into these movies for several reasons. One of them is to see how far you can get. The thing is, if you're starting to feel woozy like that, you should leave. They give you tools and stuff to barf and stuff too, right? For that very reason. The whole point is they know it's a bit gross and not everyone will be able to handle it. If it's too much, you leave. That's how it goes. These movies aren't for everyone. Why I know they're not for everyone? Because a product made for everyone is a product made for no one. Right? You ever hear that quote? You guys probably didn't. But the thing is, anything that's made for everyone, no one actually likes. No one likes them. It's like a lot of those woke movies. They're a product made for everyone, so no one likes them.
That bothers me. And you're watching something. If you are somebody who's engaged,
you try to appeal to everyone instead of just trying to appeal to a specific target audience, is what it's called. What happens is you make something boring and bland and uninteresting and uninspired and shit.
And watching these films that uses
this podcast. These guys want to make this podcast for everyone, I bet. Well,
all of this, imagery.
You got a bunch of bots in your comments who praise you for having 0 brain cells, and laughing in the face of God's giving you brain. He gave you this thing called a brain, you guys. You are mocking him by refusing to use it.
That is from scripture, right? He grew up Catholic, doesn't really know what he believes now. And he uses all this imagery. And then you see, oh, well, it also started from All Hallows Eve. And we're in a time, we're just a couple weeks away from people that are going to be going trick-or-treating, that are going to be going and celebrating Halloween. And then they're going to chalk it up to just, it's an All Hallows Eve thing, Joe. It's all this really nice stuff. When you see clearly, this is not only stolen from paganism, but just continued the practice.
Stolen? Okay. Oh, man. Wow. advocating for the very woke far left concept of cultural appropriation is evil. Wow. My guy, you are literally agreeing with the trans ideology right now. Just saying that's what they were doing in 2016. That's why everyone made fun of them. Because that's a dumb idea. The idea that like liking a thing about another culture is inherently bad, and wanting to do like and wanting to like mimic it yourself is inherently bad. Is a far left communist concept. That's what commies did. That's what Antifa did. That's what those BLM riots, like a lot of them believed, right? That's far left communist. Wow, you agree with communists on a lot of things, I've noticed. Also, the transphobia. A lot of communists are actually very transphobic, just so you know. China, Russia, Nazi Germany, fascist Italy, all of those communist countries, not exactly pro a lot of those things, you know? Same with Muslims. It's weird, you know. You're so against these cultures because of them, you know, adhering to the beliefs. Because here's the thing: you don't like the slippery slope where it leads on either direction. You want to be in the fence of the slippery slope. Don't go too far this way or that way. Because if we went full on Bible, you know what? Another thing that all the Christian nations that just Christianity is the law has, that not non-Christian, more secular nations that have it as a guiding authority but not a central authority do, right? Well, see, unlike Britain or the Americas where pedophilia is a crime, in Nigeria and Uganda it's a normal occurrence. It's illegal there, right? It's legal. They do it all the time. They have child marriages and all that, right? And the reason why is because, you know, hey, look, hey, it's an 8-year-old that went through puberty, right? And it's the same thing with like all the Muslim countries. And the reason why is because there's actually nothing in your book against that. You do know that, right? Like your Bible isn't 100% against pedophilia or for it. Obviously, it's not for it, but it has nothing against it. And the reason why I say that is because, yes, it's not for it, but where is the evidence of that? Well, it's not in there. You have to use your brain and figure it out. It's not in the Bible. There's no verse or context or anything where the pedophilia is wrong, except for the fact that you know pedophilia is wrong. You have to circle back to your own beliefs, your own volition, your human ideals to figure out that yes, fucking a child is wrong because it's not in the Bible. It's weird, right? It's weird that the Bible doesn't have that. Well, here's the thing. Back then, marrying an 11-year-old girl, a man marrying an 11-year-old girl was normal. Yes, that very disgusting thing called pedophilia, called raping children, was seen as normal throughout society's history. It's very gross, isn't it? Right? Well, guess what? That was the Bible didn't say anything about that. The Bible said stuff about the Bible said stuff about like adultery, but the thing is, they allowed child marriages, so that wasn't how that worked. If you can marry an 11-year-old girl, you're marrying a child. I'm just saying that, right? That was a thing that was not spoken about at all in the Bible. And they also had examples of it in the Bible, but like it's not promoted, but it's also never condemned, right? That's like the thing. You never see it condemned. It's never actively promoted. It's just like, here, this happened. It's not promoted, because promoted would be like saying God commanded you to do it. It just says it happened and there was no punishment for it, because that it just didn't think of that at the time, because it wasn't thought out like that, right? Because it turns out, the people responsible for writing a lot of the morals, whatever traditions of the Bible, were just agreeing with everyone else at the time. Same with homosexuality. Believe it or not, the Greeks were not very proud of homosexuality. They were probably more homophobic than Christians were, in many of their laws and practices, right? In fact, it's more probably arguable because of when like those books were written, like, and when the books that don't have anything against any gay stuff or ever written, that a lot of the anti-gay stuff came from Greece, and not the actual original Hebrew text, and the homophobia and all that was an adaptation to get to pass into Greek and Roman society, or pagan society, as you would call it, right? And that's, yeah, that's probably shocking, ain't it? Right? It's probably shocking. Well, it's not, because you like, everyone kind of knows that. But that's the thing. You were never countercultural. Judaism and Christianity were very much like in line when it came to the morals of like a lot of like most things. The only thing that was countercultural about Christianity itself, not Judaism, but Christianity, from back then, was Jesus, right? Had this idea where you would do charity work, and you would be saved through grace alone, instead of donating money to like extremely rich assholes who taught you, like, who lied in front of you while preaching in their synagogues, for all to see, while praying in front of everyone, as if it's like like they're supposed to be holier for that, right? And all that, just like the hypocrites did, right? Yeah, I'm going Matthew 6 on your ass. I'm calling you out. You are yes, the Bible condemns you guys very much directly. And it's very much a very fun little thing. Pharisees revealing themselves isn't always great. Yeah. So yeah, these clowns are just whatever, just being stupid, like just being stupid. They're small nobodies. Like they don't really have any impact on the world. I guess thank God that these Satanists don't,
Of
But yeah,
necromancy. even.
they are
Yeah,
they
it
are
actually
Satanists,
still is.
just like anti-fascists are fascists. These anti-Satanists are satanic.
Necromancy, even the way the Roman Catholic churches practice it, because they're praying to dead people. In fact, it's interesting. In that documentary by History Channel, they talk about Lemuria, which is
Praying to dead people. Like, you do know that prayer is just like talking to God, right? Right, like that's what it is. And so what that means is you're talking to something that by the definition of life is not alive, right? God doesn't expend energy or have to deal with entropy. He doesn't sexually reproduce, or anything like that, without like having like an outside force of himself, right? In fact, he actually can't reproduce within himself, because as it turns out, anything that would literally mean he wasn't reproduced. Like either he's everywhere and therefore he never reproduced, and therefore Jesus also is just a bunch of atoms he controlled, right? There's that possibility. Or he's not everywhere, in which case there was an outside thing he needed, like a virus, right? Viruses are also not alive. Because this is the funny thing. Life requires you to be able to reproduce on your own. It requires you to expend energy, like as in you have a system of energy. You have a limit of that. That's a required part of life. Another required part of life is to reduce waste, which I would hope God doesn't do. If he's everywhere, and if he's like more like acorporeal, then obviously it would be kind of weird for that to happen too, right? Um, and obviously, the last one, well, like just he doesn't have like to deal with entropy, because he's not part of the universe. I would assume, at least not directly, right? So none of these concepts of life apply to God. So by definition of life and death, you are praying to a dead being. That's how it goes, right? That's how it goes. God isn't alive. God might be, God's real. God's where life comes from. But this is the funny thing about like these guys who don't actually know what words mean. There is no world of language where spirits are actually alive, because living things are corporeal and spirits are acorporeal, right? Like spirits are supernatural, living things are natural. Supernatural isn't the same as natural. So you can't be alive and be supernatural. This is how it works. Um, and these are like literally just like connect the dots of what words mean. So yes, God isn't alive and therefore would be dead. Um, because dead is lacking the property of life. So yes, everyone prays to dead spirits by the technicality of the definition of what you just said. Because all spirits are by definition dead, including the Holy One. It just so happens that being dead isn't necessarily like a hindrance to someone who's almighty, because as it turns out, you got infinite power. Uh, Life isn't a fucking limitation for you. It's how it works. He's got infinite of that. There's no limits here, so he can do things while technically being dead. This is why supernatural events can't be tested in science, by the way, because even if they are, because real or not, you would have to use natural phenomenon to test a thing that is so far away and out of nature's grasp that anything you do to test it would not give predictable results, right? That's just how it works, right? You can't test God scientifically at all. You can't prove or disprove him scientifically. You have to prove and disprove him philosophically, because he's not natural. He's supernatural. You know, it's the same thing with ghosts and werewolves. Well, I guess maybe not werewolves because they're physically there. So yeah, it's the same with ghosts, right? You can't disprove or prove a ghost with science or anything. You can kind of guess that like a ray, like a banshee isn't real, right? Just by the fact that the ideas behind banshees, like you could kind of actually scientifically test them, and they kind of prove that they aren't actually a thing that has ever truly occurred. But at the end of the day, the idea of a banshee can't be disproven. You can kind of like go through every incident, and this is why you don't prove a negative, obviously. You prove a positive claim, right? Because if you have to look at every incident throughout history where there was a banshee claim of a banshee, right? You wouldn't have the ability to do that and necessarily. So, I mean, I guess you could say that maybe they are, maybe they aren't. So this is why you do it philosophically, right? And the reason why you would say banshees most likely aren't real is that the depictions that they don't show the power to manipulate the natural world and in a way where they would leave no evidence of themselves. So they would actually be a natural phenomenon if they were, and you could test them, right? So then you bring it to science. Now with God, unlimited power, there is enough power gap that yes, he could leave no evidence of his existence whenever he did stuff. So there you go. You can't really ever disprove that. So therefore, belief or not belief are just as reasonable. There's no you can prove it to be the most reasonable thing or definitively prove God at all. But you can prove that the debate really on that is meaningless. Like, hey, look, believe what you want to believe, right? But you can also prove that like your beliefs on morals and things are more beneficial, right, to humanity's survival and stuff as a species, which is the thing that an actual Christian would do. Instead of debating things that without actually talking about evidence of why things are bad or good, instead of doing that, what you do is you hide evidence of things and you obstruct in your own arguments of why they're bad, which is really weird because you don't really need to obstruct here. Like, I literally gave you evidence of why that thing you said was actually bad. And you never once said that in this entire video. I thought you would say it after I said it. You have yet to say these things that I gave you. I knew these things before you did. Because instead of, oh, they're trans, therefore it's bad, I showed evidence of why things like this are bad. You didn't, because you don't have it. Because you look at the conclusion of trans equals bad rather than trans has a more of a correlation with these bad things than non-trans people do. Therefore, right, it's, while it's not necessarily an evil thing, it is a red flag for evil things, and you should regulate it to keep it from getting to that point. See, this is why when you're a conservative but still have some sense of morality and justice, you can see where the lines are on these things, right? Hey, look, pedophilia is bad because it ruins a child's mental health growth because you are stunting them by abusing them sexually while they are still growing up, and potentially even impregnating them and putting them with a potentially permanent life-changing event to their ability to function. And it might even, because if depending on how young they are, they might even have to either abort it or die, because it turns out when you are young enough, getting pregnant can be and having the baby delivered will be a death sentence to you and the baby. You'd both die, right? Because the thing you have is not supposed to be there. You can say 10-year-olds not, you shouldn't impregnate a 10-year-old because a 10-year-old kid, there's, well, one, they're still a kid, but also their body cannot actually successfully birth a child. The kid having the kid will die, and the kid that kid is having will die, right? That's what will happen. It's a 1-to-1 thing. That's a causal thing, right? That means it is that thing, right? So that alone, child pregnancy, especially at a certain age, I can tell you exactly why it's bad, right? I can tell you why things that may lead to that through correlation are also bad. So, pedophilia itself, I can explain why it's bad because I know why these things are bad, because I've experienced some of these things. I've been a victim of molestation as a child. I know why it's bad. I know what it does to someone's mind. I know it fucks a lot of things up. You know what I wonder though? Why don't you know that it's bad? You don't necessarily need to know, experience it yourself. But, growing up, you had a much higher rate of this than my, generation did. I'm a millennial. You guys had the highest rate of this shit imaginable. Like, every fucking 50-year-old woman I talked to, especially black women, was raped as a kid, right? It's weird. It's weird, right? Like, these guys will... But statistically, you guys are the most likely to have been molested. So you should have known someone, right? But you don't, which means, oh, right, yeah. See, this is where I'm getting at. He's a child molester, probably. Most likely, he most likely abused his own kids. He is that fucking much of a monster. Most likely, he might not be. He's definitely a monster in other areas. The other guy is definitely a chaser. I don't know about any of that. This guy, he's at that generation where there aren't really too many good people at his age, really, from that aren't victims of bad people, right? Like the boomer generation, you are either a victim or a victimizer, basically. There is no real in between, unfortunately. It's very bad. But yes, that generation has it's either you were abused by the silent generation, or you abused Gen X. It's very disgusting, but it kind of is true. Now I don't know which one he is. Or maybe he's a rare exception to the rule, because remember, exceptions to the rule prove the rule. So, he might be a rare exception to that, where he's an outlier. But that's kind of how that generation went. That's why when Matt Walsh talks about child pregnancy, he defends it as unwed pregnancy by saying, people had sex with kids all the time, but they were married in like this guy's generation. Yeah, that was a thing Matt Walsh actually said, by the way. Matt Walsh has said many a pedophilic things. Because as it turns out, maybe that's what he was getting on. Because remember, he plays a trans woman in Lady Ballers. Maybe he was projecting that all men in dresses are pedophiles because he's a man who wanted to wear a dress and he is a pedophile, right? That's called projection, just so you know. Because they aren't all, but that from his experience, he is one. So we can't fathom that not being like what caused it, and not just the fact that he's a fucking hypocritical like asshole. The funny thing is, he calls himself a fascist, but he actually objectively isn't. That's that one thing I will say that is actually a joke. It's a bad joke, but it's a joke. He's LARPing as a Nazi. Matt Walsh, not this guy, but Matt Walsh is LARPing as a Nazi, but he's actually not one. By like the thing, he's just not a good person. But like there's different ways we can talk about that. But why you would openly say you are one instead of just not? Yeah, it's kind of stupid. I'm just gonna say that. But yeah.
A holiday, full-blown, Roman pagan holiday, and that's
it's funny. They disproved their argument here by having it be in the early May, or in mid-May, which is not the end of October.
what the Roman Catholic Church did, not to be confused with the early church of the first 3 centuries of church history.
Notice it's the 13th of May. That's not the 31st of October.
We're talking about the politicized church under Constantine, and basically what followed, sometime after Constantine. In fact, this is from the Encyclopedia Britannica on Lemuria. It says, Lemuria in a Roman religion, wicked and fearsome specters of the dead appearing in grotesque and terrifying forms. They were said to haunt their living relatives and cause them injury. To propitiate these ghosts and keep...
Yeah, but also like the Romans genocided Christians, so... a lot of the things that they had were concepts to, they were basically doing Hitler like propaganda back then on Jewish people and Christians. So it's likely that this actually, because here's the thing, it's kind of likely that Lamore referred to like a grave of a Jewish person, and then later Jewish and Christian people, right? And they used this as a slur for a dead Jewish person to justify their bigotry and genocide against the Jewish people. Because yes, that was a thing that the Romans were doing. Nero Caesar is literally called the beast or the devil for one of his that he did, and they did this way more than just that. So. Yeah, yes, they demonized these people. Yes. Where's the argument where where you actually have any evidence of anything that you didn't pull out of your ass?
Keep them from the house.
I'm just saying, you can literally just put the historical what Romans thought of Jewish people and Christians at the time. And the fact that they're saying that these are wicked people, and yes, there you go.
Household ritual observances called Lemuria were held yearly on May 9th, 11th, and 13th.
Weird how that's not October 31st. Right?
And
isn't that weird?
It goes on to talk about how Lemuria became basically a holiday wherein at midnight, the head of each household, the father of each household, was required to purify his hands, toss black beans to the spirits to gather, and recite entreaties for the spirits' departure. So you have
Yes. Have you never seen a single Ouija board movie, right? The Ouija board movies, right? They never actually obey the Ouija board, which is like a thing, right? In the Ouija board movies, right? The rules of the Ouija board are always say goodbye and don't ask anything more than simple questions and things like that. And the reason for that is to avoid getting possessed and shit. That's actually the point of it. Now in reality, Ouija boards are just uh like plastic things with letters on it, sold by the Parker Brothers as a board game that it has isn't even fucking fun because it's a piece of plastic with two pieces. Yeah, a two-piece board game. Would you rather play Ouija board or Shoots and Ladders, kids? Yeah, I'm going with Shoots and Ladders and Monopoly any day of the week. Maybe get some Certigo in there or some Dungeons and Dragons or something fun. It's you know, like there's nothing fun about that game, right? It's not anything actually extraordinary like a lot of horror movies would get you to believe. It's literally just a piece of plastic where nothing happens. And the people make shit up on both sides, both the affirmative and the negative, to promote it or demonize it. It's when really the only demonization you need is it's a piece of colored plastic. Why don't you just get a phone case? It's the same thing. you know.
had basically the Roman Catholics,
Honestly, the phone case might be better quality plastic too.
long before it became November 1st and so forth, All Hallows Eve. They already had that going on in May, and they basically took a pagan holiday, and instead it's prayers to the saints, and we're pray to the dead, not black beans, but prayers to the dead, so we can get less time in purgatory because that veil was being removed.
Okay, yeah. Where's the point?
Between the dead and the undead and so forth, supposedly, right? Which obviously was.
Okay, so they prayed that dead people wouldn't suffer. Yes. Okay. Where is the where is this is super evil thing from? Where is that? So their relatives and stuff, they would pray that they were okay. All right. Where's the issue here? To be fair, he's probably fundamentally misunderstood in this, either because he's a moron who thinks the History Channel, where Ancient Aliens and Pawn Stars are the main shows, actually is teaching you legit history at any point, or he's just purposely twisting it. At this point, I don't know. He could just be mentally retarded. I don't know. He kind of gives me that vibe. I don't know. I'm starting to see a unibrow kind of show up on his face now.
Wasn't. And then later it was moved into November 1st and
he's starting to look like his Down syndrome kind of thing.
3rd and so forth. And then, October 31st, there'd be all the festivities before these festivities that would take place on November 1st. And then they basically sanctioned, Roman Catholics won't have any kind of church discipline for dressing up like demons, and practicing Halloween and even dressing up like the devil himself. So
no. I mean, maybe you could, but that's not what most people dress as. To be fair, they call it the devil, but the devil don't never depict like that historically ever in history. It's never depicted as a guy in red, just a red guy with a pitchfork. You know that, right? You know that, right? You know that, right? He's not just some red guy with a trident, right? You know that, right? In fact, the description that the Bible gives of Azazel/Lucifer is, the most beautiful of the angels. Maybe it's maybe it would have a bit of a kind of like Aphrodite from Hades 1, where it's kind of a mixture of male and female beauty. It's a bit androgynous, but still clearly meant to be like this mysterious beauty kind of thing that Aphrodite has in Hades 1. And 2 to an extent, but it's much more feminine in that one. Uh, Although people who were woke, like spotted on the series, tried to lie and say that the Hades 2 design was the Hades 1 design and vice versa, which wasn't the case. But yeah, okay, so that like maybe that's the thing, but like he wouldn't be like just skin and a trident. It would actually be a trident. The pitchfork actually like because a pitchfork is like has multiple has like more than 3 prongs. He has a trident, 3 prongs. Okay, 3 prongs is a trident. But anyway, yeah, it's just a um it's just like a funny little haha thing. The devil has never been depicted like that either. Like literally, you can look anywhere in your religion, you will never see that depiction of him. In fact, he's usually like in the Bible, and he takes a form. He's usually what more serpentine too, right? In fact, he's kind of like mistaken as a woman, considering that like the demon in the Garden of Eden was female, right? Which is a thing because the devil would have like a mixture of both, I guess, right? So we have this androgynous serpentine like beauty kind of thing, tricking Adam and Eve, and then like later being like the beast that Jesus has to fight and conquer, I guess. Yeah, yeah. Um, he doesn't look like any of the Halloween costumes. In fact, he probably looks more like honestly like a dragon persona you would see on for Affinity than anything else, honestly.
Basically baptized a lot of paganism in the name of Christ, and Jesus didn't go along with it, and we ought not as well. In fact, I think it should be alarming, Chad, for all of us. We can't just say, oh, they changed it into a Christian holiday. It's not a Christian holiday. The way the Roman Catholics do it, it's still pagan. You're still committing, as Chad said, necromancy.
No, you do realize that it's kids, right? Like the thing that adults do is we have food. Like it's sort of like Christmas. The thing adults do is we eat food. The things kids do is all that Santa stuff and all that, right? The things adults do is eat food and give thanks and celebrate family and love and stuff, right? And then go to church and like talk about the manger and all that. The things kids do is the Santa stuff because it's fun. It's fun little things for kids to do. And I feel like the thing is, the best way to beat paganism probably, is to say it's kid shit. Just like, hey, all that Greek mythology, all that Hercules, that's just kid shit. We have kids movies of Hercules. Most Christian movies where like it's themed on teaching you real Christian like theology is for adults, not kids, right? So like real Christian stuff is adult stuff, except for like VeggieTales because that's actually dope as hell. But no, dope as heaven, I guess. Would be a proper word for that. But like yeah, and this is the other thing. Like they'll be like looking at my edgy language because I don't like care about language. Like when these guys clearly don't either. They don't understand a lot of words, obviously.
Necromancy. So no matter what way you cut it. But it's interesting, Satanist Anton LaVey, the head of the Church of Satan, who started the Church of Satan in 1966, wrote the Satanic Bible in 1969. In the Satanic Bible, Anton LaVey specifically states that it's one of the 3 highest holidays, that is Halloween, for
the dude's an edgy atheist though. Like calling Anton LaVey as the founder of Satanism, you lose the argument as soon as you do that. Because anyone who isn't like retarded knows that he's just a Reddit atheist. Like, yeah, the guy is just a cringy guy you would see on an online forum, going milady, tipping his hat while while just like doing stupid shit and looking at memes and stuff on the internet. Yes, he was like weird and stupid and a moron, but he wasn't actually worshiping the devil. He was being a moron and an edgy atheist. Like he's not a good guy. I won't pretend like that, but he's not like like as far as I remember, he's not like anything like actually bad. He's just a fucking moron and a waste of time.
Or the Satanist. In fact, I have some crazy quotes from him. Listen to what else he
Like he's
said.
not like Charles Manson kind of thing, right? Charles Manson was another form of Satanist who was objectively evil. And notice he didn't call himself a Satanist like this guy did, right? Because like I said, the most true Satanists would LARP as Christians. The this guy never did, right? But yeah. And also it's funny, like he highlights this, yeah, it kind of has a edgy tone to it in some ways. Yes. Like what they're talking about is how it's kind of like an edgy fun moment for kids and stuff. Like yes. Um like this is technically not wrong, but it's also like, you know, the thing is the whole point of this is to be edgy, and just like nonsense, like it's just edgy atheistic nonsense, right? It's not actual Satanism. It's not actual demonic worship like Charles Manson's satanic cult was, right? Where he didn't even say he was satanic, you just know he's satanic because what he did, right? This is the thing. I know you're Satanist because what what your lack of doing actual Christian deeds and your promotion of fear and all and other things through probably like you clearly like you can't even say you don't fear trans people when this is what you're talking as like your thing. You're literally like using a horror movie as your analogy excuse, even though like it has nothing to do with the thing. You do know that, right? Like when you have analogies that have nothing to do with the thing, you show that you're so afraid of the thing, it pops up where it doesn't belong. That's what fear is. And that's why like the god is the god of panic, specifically because you're spreading panic, you're spreading misinformation, and lies in masqueraded as protection. Um, and because of that, you're spreading this lie of protection in order to cause a hysterical panic. Yes, that's phobia. Yes, that's the definition of phobia. Yes, there you go. You are a fun phobe, really. You are a transphobe and other things, and a homophobe and other things too. But you are most importantly a fun phobe, right? Because what you're really looking at this is okay, some edgy like Reddit tier atheist from the '60s said things that he thought were funny, and you for some reason believed him. I guess that he's correct on an edgy joke. I mean, like it's literally a joke. Like the whole thing is a joke. You look at this, if you look at the site, you can tell like these people are literally just laughing their asses off at you. And like literally like the Church of Satan is really more of a at this point is really more of like a charity for like the outcasts of Christianity than anything else. Right? It's like, hey, look, you're an atheist or you're like an outcast, a Christian who was outcast from their own church. Hey, look, you can come here. We'll like have some like board games and like some, and you know, like, we can play blackjack and hookers. You know, because like, it's like the Bender thing. Like, we'll build a church and it'll be better with blackjack and hookers. You know, that I don't think the hookers thing is there anymore. But like that's basically what it is. It's like you go there, you just have fun, right? It's not, you know, it's not like good, right? It's not bad either. It's just okay, right? Like it's just yeah, like you know, it's not promoting. I'm not promoting it, but I'm also not against this thing, right? Now, actual Satanism, because I don't think this is really Satanism. I think this is just like using this. If anything, this is more Christian because it's turning it all on its head. Because instead of worshiping the devil, you're just worshiping edgy humor instead of, well, not worshiping it, instead of worshiping the devil, you're just being edgy and joking around. um like yes, I think that's actually more anti-satanic than a lot of other solutions, because hey, you're turning it into a joke. You're making the devil be a joke instead of like a serious threat. And so now, like, now, because you're just making fun of him, right, you're taking away his power, right? You're making it so this incarnation of evil is seen as like a little slightly edgy thing in a kid's horror movie that you might see, like in Frankenweenie, where it's like kind of edgy, just, and like most people are laughing their ass off the entire time because of how stupid things are, the fart joke or something, and like this kind of like thing. And then now the devil's reduced to fart jokes and like cereal boxes, and like Halloween cereal boxes, right? And when that happens, right, what it comes down to is the devil loses his power, because now, instead of being seen as this extremely like powerful evil entity, he's seen as like this like just joke, right? And because of that, you no longer fear the devil, because he's weak, he's pathetic, he's just a joke, right? And what it comes and like the reason why you should not, like, at all, it's sort of like anything. Like, I brought this up with Kotaku, right? Kotaku's kind of like this, right? Whenever people took them as the joke they were impotent, right? But now that you've got like people like Az and Smash JT pretending like that they were ever actually like journalists in the first place, instead of just listening to John Bain and remembering that they were never actually a real force of journalistic integrity, but always like clickbaity nonsense people. That they because they treat them like legit journalists at one point, right? Now Kotaku's actually able to win against them by suing them out of the ability to speak and stuff. This would not have happened in 2013 when they were going out of business, because no one was reading their shitty stuff, right? We made them out to be a joke, and then people try to make them out to be a threat, and look what happened, right? Look what happened. The second they ended up being talked about being a threat, they ended up getting a lot more money and influence again. And they ended up taking over their actual games journalistic industry, taking over IGN and things. This is why you treat the devil like a joke, like this guy does, instead of like an actual like vile evil force, where maybe he would be if you didn't treat him like a joke. Because here's the thing: when you treat the devil like he's just some toy on a fucking Walmart, what happened? Well, people stop people stop fearing him. People stop desiring him. People think, oh, this guy's trying to possess me. Well, what was he gonna possess me to do? Like make a edgy joke at my mom, like. And so when it happens, right, when you take away the seriousness of it, it depowers things like that. And it's really a lot of evil things you can do that with. Because when you treat it like a joke that it should be, instead of taking it seriously, you just ignore the serious aspects and continue to just be humorous about it, like this church does. It no longer holds as a symbol of anything of power. So really, these guys are probably doing more for Christianity against the war against Satan than anyone who's ever been against them did, because they make Satan out to be like a joke. And that's what you want. You want Satan to just be limited. Instead of like the Lord of Flies, he's just the Lord of Fun Guys. I mean, of Five Guys, right? Like the Lord of Five Guys, right? This is like your burger like restaurant, right? And then you do that, and now it's like, oh, okay, Satan's just like gives me like a good burger that's overpriced. All right, well, okay, so now that's the symbol that he has. And the thing is, here's the thing. Here's why like that matters. When you do that, when you cut off the value of a symbol, the symbol no longer holds power, right? It's the same thing with like the cross, right? The cross itself, right, is a holy symbol. but when you invert it, you twist what it means, right? So when you twist what it means and invert it to mean the opposite thing that it would normally mean, you kind of give power. You take power away from it. Similarly, when the Nazis did that with the Hindu manji, right? The manji was just a symbol of I think like India, right? And Hitler took it, changed the direction of like the hook things, right, on it, and used that as his flag. And now, where is the manji? It's powerless, right? But it was converted to a symbol to mean power, so now it means Nazi. So it means evil, right? Instead, because it was corrupted and flipped. But the way you fix that, people won't like this, but the way you fix that is to turn it into a joke, which the furries have kind of done, although apparently the people who did this were also pieces of shit. But the furry raiders literally just turned it into from a Nazi like swastika to a paw print, and made it out to be like a fucking lame joke. And now, hey, look, Nazis are just gay furries now. Okay, like yeah, the history's most prominent transphobes and homophobes that literally started a genocide against the Jewish people because they had a single building where a lot of trans research was done. Yeah, that like like now they're gay furries. So now you've like made them such a joke that no one can take neo-Nazis seriously anymore, right? They worship a soy boy who killed himself. He's basically the first Tumblr artist, right? Like he's not only did he commit suicide, but he also like did all of this because he failed art school. Like it's literally a Tumblr artist thing, right? You would see like a Tumblr artist, like someone would joke about them as a fan fiction. That would be their origin story kind of thing. It's like they were like a villain, and now it's like, oh, these people are a joke. Like Nick Fuentes is a joke. And what happened when people started doing that? He like lost all the influence he had. He's trying to get it constantly on Twitter, and he keeps failing because of that. And that's a thing to note. When you make evil into a joke, you remove its ability to be evil. It is how it works.
We read on the official website of the Church of Satan.
In order for evil to actually prosper, it has to be taken seriously. Which is why,
on their fact page,
which is why I say the Church of Satan, just making Satan just be a joke of what he should be, is actually good, because it makes Satan just be like go from this monstrosity of evil. Just be like, hey, look, that's that gay guy from Has-Been Hotel. Oh, wow. Right? Like, it depowers him completely.
Read this. Halloween is a time when the masses, quote, reach down inside and touch the darkness, which for us Satanists is a daily mode of existence, and that they may freely, quote, indulge their fantasies by donning the costumes that allow for intense role-playing and the release of their demonic core.
Okay,
and
yeah, so it's like they just said role-playing, so that means like just being a dipshit, you know what I mean? Like have you heard of the word LARPer or live action role player, right? It's just dudes being dipshits.
And to quote, mixing pagan
this guy doesn't know what language means. Okay, good. He's retarded.
holidays
English class, all right.
Is when you are actually
and oh wow, a pamphlet. I'm noticing a trend here with like a lot of these scam things too. Notice how like this book is literally like 2 pages long. What am I supposed to learn in 2 pages, right? The holiday is thousands of years old. 2 pages to like prove like a link that doesn't exist. Yeah. Yeah, I wonder
practicing
why
pagan things that glorify evil is absolutely forbidden. In fact, in Jeremiah chapter 10, he reads verses around 2 through 4.
And like you said, it's funny that he uses the LaVeyan church specifically, because the LaVeyan church is literally just edgy atheism.
For the word of God states clearly, the Lord says, do not learn the way of the pagan.
Well, Yes. And also notice how it's a single sentence, and it's not even the whole sentence. The A is referring to the fact that he split in half, right? So half of a sentence is a context to this retard. All right, let me actually look up the actual chapter. Let's look that up. All right, Jeremiah, uh, 2, right? We'll just do Jeremiah 2, right? The whole chapter, because I actually care about context. All right, so this would be like the thing he was saying, right? So the word of the Lord came to me. Go and proclaim in the hearing of Jerusalem. This is what the Lord said. I remember the devotion of your youth, how as a bride you loved me and followed me through the wilderness. So, okay, so through a land not sown, Israel was holy to the Lord. The first fruits of his harvest, to all who devoured her were held guilty, and disaster overtook them, declares the Lord. Hear the word of the Lord, you descendants of Jacob, all you clans of Israel. This is what the Lord says. What fault did your ancestors... Wait, actually, this is right. Okay, wait, I'm reading the fucking... Jeremiah 10, sorry. Look at that. All right, Jeremiah 10. Here we go. All right. Hear what the Lord says to you, people of Israel. This is what the Lord says. Do not learn the ways of the this is obviously like saying the same thing in different words. So pagan means like nations of the ways of the nations means like the people who aren't. I think they should say foreign here to make it, because that's basically what pagans were, is like foreign nations. But yeah, it's fine. Do not learn the ways of the pagans, or be terrified by the signs of the heavens in the heavens. What is this guy doing? All right, so he's already like the other half of the verse he's already ignoring to do this. Very funny how he ignores the context of half of a sentence, isn't it? Right? A half of a sentence debunks what this guy is saying, because he's doing the other half of the sentence that it says not to do. Or be terrified by signs in the heavens, though the nations are terrified by them. So, he's saying don't be terrified by like things you see in around you, because that's what the pagans do, right? What's this guy doing? Like he literally just proved that he doesn't actually believe in God by doing that. By taking a single half of a verse. Right, okay. For the practices of the people are worthless. They cut a tree out of the forest, and a craftsman shapes it with his children. Right, so they're talking about how, like, like the little practices they had. So like Christmas trees, I guess, is what he would interpret this as. Which, sure, like, yeah. And then they adorn it with silver and gold. Yeah, so this is just a Christmas tree and a scarecrow, right? Like a scarecrow in a cucumber field, their idols cannot speak. They must be carried because they cannot walk. Do not fear them. They're saying that these are false gods. But we don't use the Christmas tree to pray to God. We use the Christmas tree because it's a pretty tree, and we want to like surround the gifts around that. It has nothing to do with a god. You're not giving the gifts to the tree. You're giving the gifts to your kids. So if anything, we're corrupting their symbols into ours to give their symbols a meaning that empowers us and weakens them. Right? Like, this is what it really comes down to. You're playing with symbols. When you weaken their symbols, they are meaningless. So this used to be a god. Now it's like a decoration for the presents. Right? It's no longer a god. It's a decoration for presents. See? It's literally like this, basically, by reading the second sentence, like the second half of that one sentence, and then going through this, you notice how, like, it literally basically says, these guys do all this, believe this dumb shit is going to protect them from me, and, the drill, this stuff is worthless. Yeah, you're not doing the tree out of a religious tradition. You're just doing the tree because it's a place to put gifts under. That's nice, but because of that, you're also taking away the symbol, because the symbol means nothing to you now. So it's a symbol of nothing, and a symbol of nothing is nothing. Right. So anyway, no one is like you, Lord. You are great, and your name is mighty in power. Who should not fear you, King of the nations? This is your due among all the nation, all of the wise leaders of nations, and in their kingdoms there is no one like you. Right. So it's saying this is basically like sucking God's dick. But hey, look, there's plenty of that in the Bible for good reason. God's a pretty big Chad. He's got that big dick energy. He's the most powerful thing in the universe. He's got some shoes to fill. They're all senseless and foolish. They're taught by worthless wooden idols. Hammered silver is brought from Tarshish, and gold from okay, whatever. And what is the craftsman and the goldsmith have made is then dressed in blue and purple, all made by skilled workers. Okay. But the Lord is the true God. He's the living God, the eternal God. When he's angry, the earth trembles. The nations cannot endure his wrath. So yeah. It's saying basically these are for their protection things that they're talking about. And he's saying this would not protect you. If I want you dead, you're going to die, right? So like where is the thing where you can't take their symbols and make them a joke? To use them like to make kids have fun during the holidays. It doesn't actually say that actually anywhere here. Believe it or not, what he's talking about is like religious practices in this chapter, right? But you're not doing them in a religious way. You don't treat them as these trees as deities. You don't treat a scarecrow as a god. So yes, we do those things that they did, but we are no longer putting the symbology of this is a god, this is a deity into like our beliefs. And so they're just things. They're just little things in the field. They're just little things on the trees, right? They're no longer false gods. They're just things in the house. And because of that, they lost all their symbology. They no longer mean anything. That's what happens when you integrate their things into your society, but then remove their religious context to them. They no longer are pagan things. They're your things. You took them basically. They're not theirs anymore. But God made the earth by his power. He founded the world by his wisdom and stretched out the heavens by his understanding. Oh yeah, tell me this: these guys who did not make the heavens will perish from the earth and from under the heavens. And that, okay, yeah. When he thunders, the waters and the heavens roar. He makes clouds rise from the earth of the ends of the earth. He sends lightning. Okay, yeah. So basically, storms. God sends the storms, not Zeus. God is strong, not Thor or Hercules. Or Heracles is technically what he's called in Greek, but you get the idea, right? God is the god of strength, not Thor or Heracles. God is the god of thunder, not Zeus or Thor. Nordic gods are gods of multiple things, by the way. Tend to be. God is the king, not Zeus or Odin. So it's all that, right? And so it's literally is just not saying what he's saying. When you add the context of literally just half the sentence, you can figure out the actual context of what he's saying, what God is saying here. But even like, and then you do the full context and it still doesn't agree with them. So if you need to split up a sentence in half to say what you mean, that is what's known as the devil manipulating scripture and misquoting it on purpose to lie to the would-be believer. That is literally the devil in the Gobi Desert lying to Jesus using scripture to bolster his lies. Wow, that didn't work, did it? You know, and that's what you're doing.
nations, and do not be terrified and distressed
Yeah, my
by the
God,
signs
you
of
literally just.
the heavens. And Chad, we know 1 Thessalonians chapter
Yeah,
5.
it's funny as
As
hell how he just made it super easy to debunk him and call him a Satanist.
Christians were supposed to abstain from all
Very weird,
appearances of
isn't it,
evil.
right?
And when God brought his people into the promised land, he warned them not to
It's
practice the
very odd,
abominations
isn't it, that like he just gave me that on a silver platter.
of those
But
nations,
he did.
including sorcery and divination
Let's
and
see if he
witchcraft,
does
all these
another
things that are being
that
celebrated
Bible verse.
on Halloween. And I think in the New Testament, it's quite clear when we read in 2 Corinthians chapter 6 that as Christians, you know, he says, what fellowship do believers have with unbelievers? What fellowship does light have with darkness? And Christ with Belial, and the temple of God with the temple of demons and or idols. So as Christians, man, it's imperative that as believers in Christ, that we don't partake of a holiday which is full-blown bent on the spirit world and contacting and placating demonic entities.
But that's not what we did. At least not anymore. Anyway, we made it so you get dressed up as in costumes to have fun and get candy. There's not what that was about, is it? Right? Where's the where's the have fun and go get candy, and then come back home and you know your mother makes up some like fib so that she can eat the half the candy without you know realizing it because you got that much candy that she can kind of do that because you're like 6 and you're not really going to pay that much attention to it.
Yeah, and guys, you know, one of the main reason for the show is to say, hey, you know what? We see this stuff going on. We see this is in the news.
The main reason of this show is to be Satanist light. I like Satanist in disguise. I know. I get that, right? I got that when you chose a horror movie where the bad guy is the devil as your reason that that Satan is around and stuff. Yes, when the bad guy is the devil, that means the bad guy is the devil. That means you root for the not devil. You know that, right? That's how it works. Like when they're the bad guy, like you don't root for them, right? You know how that works, right? Like that's how it works in a movie. When they make someone the bad guy, you root for the good guys.
News and hopefully give you
And the good guy is Sienna, not Art.
an opportunity to have that conversation, maybe with your coworker that loves this type of stuff. They wouldn't have the numbers if people around you weren't watching it. Let's just call it what it is.
But yes, and you know what's also funny is that they're going to continue. And if anyone followed this guy's advice, what'll happen is they will actually what'll happen, right? Is they will be made fun of by everyone for being retarded. And then that will be the end of the conversation. And if they try to push further, they will be fired from their job for being a moron, wasting everyone's time, and just making everyone upset because you're just fucking around with nonsense all day instead of doing your fucking job and putting the job you're supposed to be doing on everyone else because you're not doing your job. You're just LARPing as a Christian while saying satanic rhetoric. Yes, I know how this works. Yes, you will just look like a fucking moron in the workplace.
And this is a real
Why would you do that?
opportunity to
why do you want Christians to look like morons, my guy?
point away
Why do you want Christians to look like assholes no one wants to be around?
from the evil.
That's kind of weird, right? Why do you want that? Why do you want Christians to look like pathetic soy boys, retarded losers, and disgusting parasites in front of everyone instead of just normal, happy people? Why is it that you want that? Come on, tell me. What non-satanic reason do you have that you want all of your people, all of the people watching this video, to not be decent people in their job, the thing that they need to feed their kids? And what it comes down to is he wants you desperate, so you give him money.
And the wickedness.
Because if you lose your job, you get poor, and you might be turning to him for some stupid reason, even though he's the reason you were poor, because he told you to do something that cost you your job, and to just not caring about a fucking movie that's fiction.
And do what Ephesians 5:11 says, to expose the works of darkness rather.
Right, Ephesians 5. All right, so Ephesians 5. He said chapter. He said the chapter. He said 11. But so we're gonna do this. Ephesians 5. Yeah, Ephesians 5. Right. We're gonna. This is the reason why I don't do the chapter. Well, you'll see why. All right. So Ephesians 5 have nothing to do with the fruits of dark deeds, the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. All right. So this is the paragraph that's from. There's 8 through 14. So, for you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Live as children of light, for the fruit of the light consists in all goodness, righteousness, and truth, and find out what pleases the Lord. Have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. It is shameful even to mention what the disobedient do in secret. Okay, so you're mentioning what they do. All right, well, that there you go. But the problem is that it's not shameful, because if it was shameful, they would feel ashamed, and they don't. So, but everything exposed by light becomes visible, and everything that is illuminated becomes a light. This is why it said. So the thing that kind of debunks what he's saying here, again, in context, in proper context, where you actually look at the full fucking paragraph. This is a context. This is not. This is what a retard thinks a context is, who failed English. A sentence is not a context, my retard. You are not a human anymore. You are a retard, okay? You failed basic English at this point. You would not even be able to pass elementary school with this dog shit belief that this is a fucking context. This is a context. It's called a paragraph, right? Actually, this might actually be the full context. Let's actually see, because this is like the way this is done. This might actually not be like, this might actually be how. Anyway, we'll do the full context. Full context. So wake up, sleeper, rise from the dead, and Christ will shine upon you. Be careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity, because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. Do not get drunk off wine, which leads to debauchery. Instead, be filled with the Spirit, speaking to one another with psalms, hymns, and songs of the Spirit. Sing and make music from the heart of your Lord, from your heart to the Lord. Always give thanks to God the Father in everything, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Now, so maybe that's the full context. Okay, maybe this is the paragraph. But anyway, notice how it doesn't say what he says if it just says the one sentence, because in here, what it's saying is completely different, right? This is talking about, it has nothing to do with their deeds of darkness, really expose them. But when you look at it in full context, right? It explains what it means, because that's what context does, right? So it's saying, the things you used to do, right, that were bad, you should not do, and you should find out what things are good. Okay, that's fair. And have nothing to do with the bad things you used to do, and you should you should be open about the bad things you did. All right. And so when you mention the bad things you did in public, right? Not only you should feel shame, but other people for what you did. Okay. Because everything. Okay. So that's what it says. Okay. And so it's all right. So live wise. Don't drown your brain with alcohol, and praise the Lord, basically. So, funny thing here. Notice how it doesn't say what this guy is saying it does. It actually says to talk about your own problems, not other people's, right? This is what actually kind of says that even in the sentence, but and here it obviously makes it more clear. It's talking about, this is talking about you, not them, right? And it's saying you should basically be honest about your sins and why they were evil to people. What does that have to do with someone watching a movie that you don't want them to watch? Nothing. Nothing, because that's them, not you. Notice the thing. A very odd pattern. The Bible is not attacking the people he's thinking, or at least wanting his audience to think, because he probably knows that it's attacking him. But it's attacking him.
Doesn't have fellowship with them. And though
very, very peculiar, my guy, that you are the villain of your own story when you actually apply context to it. Isn't it very curious, right?
No, it is terrible to have to even.
So it's weird that the Bible is calling him out on his bullshit when you apply proper context to it.
Speak of these things when they are brought to the light and exposed. It says Christ will arise and shine in people's hearts. When you look at Ephesians 5:11-14, and
right, you also missed half of that. So yes, you missed the first half, 8-10. Right, it's 8-14.
That is the goal here, is for you to bring forth the gospel to people that are really into this darkness. So,
and also, no, it's 8-20. So you still failed. Congratulations.
I'll encourage you right now, if you don't know Christ, maybe you just watch this because you thought it was an interesting graphic. If you don't know Christ, know that you're a sinner. There's no doubt about it. God made the law.
Yes. Yes. All right. Okay. That's what it says. It actually is. Fun enough, you actually did say one correct thing about Scripture today. This is the only time you did. But congratulations, you have said one actual Christian concept. This entire video, this entire 20-minute video that I've been watching, you've said one thing that's actually core to Christian values.
Laws, you broke them. And when you broke them, you were due death for that. Not only death, but to incur the judgment that is deserved from breaking those laws against an almighty God who made them. And guess what? God is perfectly just to judge you for the sins that you have committed. But he's not just, he's also love. And God being love provided his son to pay for the sins that you committed. And if you would turn, you would repent and have a change of heart, which leads...
I wonder what'll happen when anyone does this in their workplace. Because they're not talking about their own sins, like this says. They're talking about someone else's sins, right? Which is not what it says, right? In fact, there's probably I'm pretty sure, let's see, Mark, I think it's 5, maybe 7, something. There's something about log, in the eyes, right? Where is it? It might be 7. All right. I think it's 7. I know it's the Sermon on the Mount. That much I do know. Oh, wait, I'm looking at Mark. I'm sorry, Matthew. Matthew is the Sermon on the Mount. Matthew 5 is Sermon on the Mount. All right, so Sermon on the Mount. Okay. Something like is this one? Okay. Log. Let's do I. See if that's it. All right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay, maybe this one doesn't use the log word or I. Okay. I know like there's the log thing. It might be 7. I know 6. 6 is a like different thing. So maybe it is 6. 6 for can't hurt to check. Anyway, yeah. It's funny. I don't know these things like off heart, but I do know around where they are. Right. Okay, so all right, no, this isn't, okay, so it was 7. Matthew 7, all right. Yeah, that makes actually sense, yeah, judge. Okay, yeah, so when you look at the speck, why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own. Or I think they said log in the original, right? How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when all the time there is a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite. First take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye, right? There's a reason why both of these are good to go together, right? Because you're telling your audience to talk about the sins other people allegedly might have done. They're alleging they're sinful, and you're having them talk to them about it, which is not what the scripture you quoted talked about. It's talking about admitting to your own sins, not their sins, yours, in front of them. And then when you admit to your sins, maybe they perform that same sin, and so they'll start feeling shameful too, right? You get what I'm saying here, right? They're saying admit to your own falsehoods and stuff, not talk about others. You're not gossiping about others' sins. You're admitting to your own. You're basically confessing the sins you do to other people. Yes, you read that, right? That's what that means. So it's weird that you're twisting scripture to mean a completely different thing by taking it out of the actual context in which it is stated, and removing about like 3/4 of it on the one and 99% of it on the other. In fact, the other one you didn't even finish an entire sentence, never mind an entire context. Like, what is wrong with you?
To a change of action, by the way, and turn towards the Lord Jesus Christ, you will be saved. The Bible says, if you believe in your heart and confess with your mouth Jesus as Lord, you believe that God raised him from the dead, you will be delivered.
Right, but you said this after lying so many times. Why would I, now it's here's where it goes. Why would I believe you? This is the first, this is the second time you've actually quoted scripture properly. But the thing is, you've already made it so I don't want to believe you because you've quoted it wrong this entire time. So now you've quoted it right twice. Why would I believe you if you've lied to me this entire time so far? Why would I do that now, right? You see why I don't see you as a Christian now, do you? You see why I see you as a force for Satan now, do you? Because you are lying to people, covering up the truth from them, and deliberately hiding what things actually say in the Bible to push a narrative to get people fired from their job for questioning why, maybe their friend watched a movie that they paid for with the money they got from their job that it is that is basically an allegory for Christianity. What is wrong with you,
From your sins, from the judgment, and also from all of the wrath that is to come. So Pastor Joe and myself encourage you right now, before it's too late.
Yeah, that's also kind of Satanistic. Why do they focus so much on the wrath? Notice how he kind of emphasized wrath there? It's kind of just like he emphasized, calling them both girls when it was a boy and a girl the first time, which, kind of you're kind of telling yourself on there, just saying.
Without being terrified through this nonsense, just turn to the Lord Jesus Christ right now, and you.
It's a movie. Most people aren't even terrified because of how silly the clown acts. Some people are, and most people aren't. And none of the fans are, right? The whole thing about, once you get to a point where you can stomach all this just fine. I literally just find him a funny clown thing. That's just, the sadism is basically he's so crazy. He gets into this thing.
Will
it's a game
be
to him, right?
saved. This has been Chad Davidson and Joe Schimmel, and this is the 511 News.
He's trying to say, I'm having fun doing this vile act. I'm so evil. I'm so edgy. I'm so edgy, right? Is kind of thing, right? Like the thing like you would have like people make fun of you for on like Kiwi forums shit, like at this point, right? Oh, I'm so edgy. I chainsawed a girl's skin off and filleted her, and then I chopped his boyfriend's anus off, and then chopped his balls off too, all the way to his mouth. Like that happens in the movie, but like you hear that, and it sounds like just something like someone would go on 4chan and be like, "Dog, like that's all you got, motherfucker."
Praise the Lord.
Yeah, like
Thank you guys so much for watching 5.
You know, it's funny. What they're saying basically means they would never survive the internet, right? And it's weird. This ministry thinks it's like doing stuff. This has less subscribers than like most like most like gaming channels, obviously. And it has, sure, it has a lot of videos, and then like the views are kind of small too. And yeah, you have to constantly scam and stuff as well. And as I said, they're pushing a satanic message onto their viewers. They deliberately misquoted the context of the Bible multiple times in this thing. And in fact, the only time they correctly quoted it, they also didn't actually mention the verses, funny enough. It's weird. That's kind of weird how like they correctly quote it. They don't like also like why would you give me the ammo to debunk you, but not the ammo to prove you right? If you were actually believed a single thing of your faith, you would like, and you were just trying to hide like your little like scam thing to the point where people would not like not like think you're full of shit. You wouldn't give them the evidence of your lies. You would give them the evidence of your you would give them the evidence of your truth, right? You want the lie to succeed, I would hope. Which I guess like the whole, but again, the thing is when you lose trust, because the thing is like the reason why these guys are harmful, even though I'm debunking them, is because they're lying and they're pastors. It gets people to lose trust in pastors because now these pastors are lying to their audience. Well, any pastor could say similar things. Yeah, that's the point. They want you to believe that all pastors are like them, liars, cheats, scumbags, and not very few are. I can attest, very few are. And so that's what they're doing. They're actually playing a satanic game where the entire point is to get you to not just not trust them, because obviously it's very easy to not trust them, but also not trust your own pastor. Is an insanely scummy rift. Yeah, these guys just fuck these people. Fuck these people for their satanic panic bullshit where they want you to worship Satan while saying they actually want you to worship Jesus. Fuck these people.
511 News.
No, fuck you. Get the fuck out of my face, bitch. Like it's like, yeah, go worship the devil somewhere else, you know?